Chapter 2756. I need you to swear a heavenly oath. Swear that you will never do anything to harm the immortal dominion, or the immortal dominion. In addition, if I need to, I will summon you one day to go to another realm with me. Knight Sorrow said. He was not thinking about himself or the immortal dominion. If he could successfully complete the heaven and earth concealment formation, the safety of the immortal dominion would not be a problem. He was thinking about the eternal supreme world. Su Changtian's strength was only half a step away from the sovereign level. If he was tempered by the eternal supreme world, he could probably become a sovereign and fight alongside him. I have no reason not to agree to your request. Save me, and I will repay you with my life. Su Changtian said confidently. He did not expect that he would have a chance to be reborn with only a sliver of his soul left. How long can this sliver of your soul last? Knight Sorrow asked. If he could not hold on for long, he was ready to teach him the secret art of the 33 heaven star souls. Su Changtian pondered for a moment and said, if I don't fight, I can hold on for another 5 or 6 years. To half-step sovereigns, who had endless lifespans, living for another 5 or 6 years was no different from dying. Hearing this, Knight Sorrow said, after saving the rest of your people, you can give me a good explanation. I will take you with me in the future. All right. Whether I succeed or not, I, Su Changtian, will never forget the kindness I have shown you. In fact, Su Changtian's sliver of soul did not have the ability to save the void beasts. Suddenly meeting Knight Sorrow was the last straw he could grasp. I have already activated the concealment formation on my body. I am almost invisible, but if I meet someone stronger than the Divine King, I will definitely be discovered. Therefore, the battle will come soon. You'd better enter my spatial artifact. It will be safer that way. After saying this to Su Changtian, Knight Sorrow used the Dark Sky Wandering Dragon technique and headed toward the Swanee tribe's territory. Although he was protected by the concealment formation, it was almost certain that he would be discovered. However, he was not afraid. After crossing the city wall, he began to search for the survivors of the Void Beasts or the Swanee tribe. Less than an hour later, Knight Sorrow found them in the territory of the Swanee race. The reason for that was because the people of the Dark Clan had actually set up an enormous summoning formation in the territory of the Swanee clan. During the construction process, the survivors of the Void Beast clan were continuously bled and turned into the adhesive for the construction of the summoning formation. Moreover, some dead void beasts were even used as materials due to their special attributes. There was only one high-level God King and 5 Sir Gods left. At that moment, they had all transformed into their human forms and were bound to the pillars beside the summoning circle. There were formations all around and a large number of dark creatures standing guard. The dark creatures present not only controlled some of the Lui clan's members, but also some who were completely dark creatures. Their bodies emitted a strong evil aura, giving people an extremely unrestrained feeling. After a rough scan, Knight Sorrow discovered that there were at least 4 Dark Divine Kings here. Apart from the miserable void beasts, the Swanee tribe was not much better off. Most of their members had been corrupted by the dark creatures. The remaining few had also become materials for the construction of the summoning formation. A half-step Divine King Swanee was being cruelly bled. It was obviously a blood sacrifice. After the blood sacrifice of this half-step Divine King Swanee, a half-step Divine King Dark Creature was immediately summoned from the center of the summoning formation that had not yet been completed. Very good. As long as there is a blood sacrifice, it can be used. Our thousands of reincarnation cycles of hiding in the divine world were not in vain. It won't be long before the warriors of the Dark Abyss completely descend upon the divine world and devour the weak creatures of the divine world. Seeing the pagoda-shaped summoning formation summon another dark creature, one of the Dark Divine King Swanee laughed sinisterly. His laughter seemed to have come from hell, causing people's hearts to palpitate. Bastard! When I, Su Changtian, am resurrected, I will definitely slaughter my way into the Dark Abyss. Su Changtian, who was in Knight Sorrow's spatial artifact, was enraged when he saw the dark creatures treating the void beasts and Swanee tribe so cruelly. However, at this moment he was completely powerless. He could only ask, what should we do next? There are at least 4 Divine King Swanee. I'm afraid you, a lower divine lord, can't handle them all. Even if we can't handle them, we have to try our best. If we let them continue, who knows how many dark creatures they will summon. The Void Beasts and Swanee tribe all had Divine King Swanee. If the dark creatures summoned 2 more Divine Kings, it would be even more difficult to deal with them. Knight Sorrow felt that he had to make a prompt decision and take action. It seems like I can only rely on your sovereign artifact and power of virtue. Su Changtian's emotions were unstable. He was very angry at himself for not being able to contribute. Back then, he had failed to break through to the sovereign realm. Since then, his life force had been constantly weakening. Now he was even weaker than the feather god. For me, facing the dark creatures, my combat strength will be much stronger. It's not like there's no chance at all. However, this battle will be very difficult for me if I rely on myself. I have to think of a way to save the Divine King of the Void Beasts and the Divine King of the Swanee tribe. Knight Sorrow opened his mouth and said, then moved stealthily toward the Divine King of the Void Beasts. There's the aura of human cultivators. However, when he was still some distance away, one of the Divine King Swanee dark creatures suddenly roared. Although it did not discover Knight Sorrow's figure, it smelled the scent of celestial realm cultivators in the air. Alert! Find the human cultivators and control them. This king wants to see what the effect of a blood sacrifice of human cultivators is. If we can also summon dark warriors of the same level, then we can continue to hunt down the cultivators of the celestial realm, slaughter the city, sacrifice billions of people, and summon an army. Another Divine King Swanee dark creature said cruelly. These dark creatures were not of the same race as the ones in the Soundless Ocean, but their motives were similar, which was to harm the celestial realm. Hearing this, Knight Sorrow immediately flew into a rage. How could he watch as these dark creatures wreaked havoc in the celestial realm? However, among the 4 dark Divine Kings, there were 2 upper Divine Kings, 1 middle Divine King, and 1 lower Divine King. If Knight Sorrow were to fight them head-on, he would probably be under a lot of pressure. He stood where he was and took out the Tianyan Bow and the Heavenly Cloud Arrow, shooting them at the Divine King of the Void Beasts and the Swanee tribe respectively, preparing to help them break free. The 2 Heavenly Cloud Arrows were wrapped in the power of virtue. When they were shot out, they immediately broke the black gas binding the 2 Divine Kings. However, Knight Sorrow had also completely exposed himself. Chapter 2757. A Divine Emperor with the Power of Virtue. He's Knight Sorrow, the ruler of the immortal divine realm. Today, we must take him down at all costs. Seeing Knight Sorrow suddenly appear and rescue the 2 Divine Kings from the Void Beast race and the Swanee race, the leader of the Dark Abyss, the Divine King of Inferno Fury, immediately roared. These creatures from the Dark Abyss were preparing to wreak havoc in this area, so they naturally paid attention to what was happening around them. They knew that Knight Sorrow had become the master of this area. Yes, leader. The other upper Divine King, Inferno Divine King, immediately turned from human to Inferno Demon and attacked Knight Sorrow. His entire body was made of flames, and his casual attack was like lava spewing out. Good timing. Have a taste of my flames. Knight Sorrow put away the Tianyan Bow, took out the Heavenly Samsara Halberd, and attacked his opponent. The moment the Inferno Demon's slaying halberd was used, scorching flames filled the void and clashed with the Divine King of Inferno Fury. Whoosh! The collision between the 2 didn't create much noise, but the terrifying flames instantly burned the clouds in the sky red. Some of the Dark Abyss creatures nearby were even burned to death. Leader. He's strong. He's not an ordinary Divine Emperor. Just in case, please help him. The Divine King of Inferno Fury was evil and murderous, but he wasn't confident that he could take down Knight Sorrow, so he directly asked the Divine King of Inferno Fury to help him. Even if you don't ask, I'll help him. The Divine King of Inferno Fury was already prepared to help. The moment the Divine King of Inferno Fury finished speaking, he, who had turned into human form, shot toward Knight Sorrow like an arrow. An expert who specializes in close combat? Seeing the Divine King of Inferno Fury rushing toward him, Knight Sorrow was first stunned. Then he laughed and said, just in time. After coming to the God realm, He really hadn't experienced many close combat battles. Now that he was facing a Divine King of the upper Divine King level, he was filled with fighting spirit. You overestimate yourself. You are an outstanding existence among the Divine Lords. But in the eyes of the Divine King, they were nothing but ants. Today, I will tear you to shreds, you worm. When the Divine King of Flame Fury saw that Night Sorrow did not choose to dodge and met him head-on, he immediately revealed a contemptuous smile. In his human form, he looked extremely cold to begin with. Now he looked even more terrifying. However, facing him, Night Sorrow didn't have any fear. He sneered and said, "Creatures of the Dark Abyss should stay in the abyss. Anyone who tried to cause trouble in the God realm, they will all be killed." With a loud shout, Night Sorrow activated the Treyastrimsa secret battle technique and completely activated the Blue Phoenix battle armor. He started fighting with the Divine King of Flame Fury. At the side, Divine King Flameskill was stunned for a moment before he joined the battle as well. He relied on his secret treasures and divine artifacts to pressure Night Sorrow. The Divine King of the Void Beast race, Su Xiaoya, who had been rescued by Night Sorrow, was fighting with another Divine King of the Dark Abyss. The Divine King of the Swanni race was also fighting with another Divine King of the Dark Abyss, just like Su Xiaoya. Although the two of them had escaped the shackles of darkness, they were still very weak. With the strength of a Divine King, they could barely resist the attacks of a Divine King of a Divine King, and a Divine King of a Divine King of a Divine King. They didn't have much of an advantage. Looking at the two of them, Night Sorrow knew that they definitely didn't have the strength to help him. Facing the Divine King of Flame Fury and the Divine King of Inferno Fury on his own, he immediately poured his blood into Tianyun Bao. With the support of Night Sorrow's blood, Tianyun Bao was quickly activated. At this moment, Night Sorrow saw that the dark creatures were attacking in large numbers. He immediately used his absolute command ability, causing all the dark creatures below the Divine Monarch realm to be killed by the lightning tribulation. Bastard! What kind of method is this? Before Night Sorrow shot out the Sky Cloud arrow, he actually said that all the high gods and feather gods of the Dark Abyss would die. This reduced the number of dark creatures of the Dark Abyss to less than 1 in 10,000. Seeing this, the Divine King of Flame Fury immediately flew into a rage. This was because it wasn't easy for the dark creatures of the Dark Abyss to successfully come to the Divine World. For example, he was originally at the peak of the Divine King realm, a major character with half a foot in the Sovereign realm. However, after going through untold hardships to come to the Divine World, his strength had dropped to the level of a normal high Divine King. Flame Fury Rampage. Flame Fury, who specialized in progressive attacks, immediately attacked crazily after being enraged. Facing him, Night Sorrow didn't fall into a disadvantage because his body was very strong, not inferior to the Divine King's level. He smiled and said, "Hundreds of thousands died in one go. If I'm not wrong, the evil creatures of the Dark Abyss only have 38 Divine Monarchs and above left." "Yes, so what? Go to hell." Seeing that Night Sorrow and the Divine King of Flame Fury were evenly matched, the Divine King of Flame Slaughter once again shot a fire attack at Night Sorrow. This time, the fire attack contained the origin of the Dark Abyss. Even Night Sorrow immediately felt the pressure. What a terrifying fire attack! Night Sorrow immediately became alert when he sensed the fire attack from the Divine King of Flame Slaughter. However, he didn't choose to dodge. Instead, he used the activated Tianyun Bao to block in front of him. Buzz! The moment the fire burned, Tianyun Bao's bowstring vibrated automatically, dispersing the fire that was burning toward Night Sorrow. The golden light that was released shot directly toward the Divine King of Flame Slaughter. How can a puny Divine Monarch activate a sovereign divine weapon? Fortunately, it doesn't have an artifact spirit. Otherwise, we would all die. In the face of Tianyun Bao's golden light, the Divine King of Flame Slaughter didn't dare to take it head-on. He immediately fled into the void. However, the golden light seemed to have a life of its own. It chased after him without any intention of stopping. Be careful of the sovereign divine weapon's attack. I will deal with this Night Sorrow myself. The Divine King of Flame Fury understood that the backlash from the sovereign divine weapon wasn't easy to deal with. He immediately transmitted his voice to the Divine King of Flame Slaughter, telling him to be at ease. Meanwhile, he took out a blood-dripping saber from his spatial artifact. He sneered and said, "This saber has just drunk the blood of the Void Beast clan and the Swanee clan. Now it's your turn, divine monarch of merit, Knight Sorrow." "Stop dreaming." Knight Sorrow coldly replied to the divine king of flame fury. Then he held the dim Tianyan bow in his hand and shot it toward his opponent. Because he had just shot out the yellow light, the originally activated Tianyan bow fell into a sealed state again. However, the heavenly cloud arrow that Knight Sorrow shot out still contained a tremendous amount of power. In the face of Knight Sorrow's heavenly cloud arrow, the divine king of flame fury was slightly surprised at first. Then he slashed at the heavenly cloud arrow with his saber. Boom! The divine king of flame fury's saber slashed at the heavenly cloud arrow, and actually repelled it. This surprised Knight Sorrow greatly. Chapter 2758. The moment the heavenly cloud arrow was deflected, Knight Sorrow discovered that the material of the divine king's saber was actually at the sovereign grade. However, its refining method was extremely crude, so it wasn't at the sovereign grade. "What? Did you discover something special about my saber?" Seeing Knight Sorrow's reaction, Yan let out a low, cold snort and swung the saber in his hand again. "I just feel that you creatures of the dark abyss are too weak in refining weapons. I feel pity for the materials in your hands." Yan split the heavenly cloud arrow with one strike, thinking that a divine lord using a sovereign-grade weapon wouldn't be much of a threat to him. Knight Sorrow immediately took out 5 heavenly cloud arrows, and shot out 5 elemental arrows. The aura of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth all carried the aura of the divine world's origin. The terrifying might came from the horizon. Not good. There's something special about this arrow technique. Facing Tianyan Bao's 5 elemental arrows, the divine king immediately felt that something was wrong. Under such circumstances, he made a prompt decision, and took out a jade talisman, and threw it in the direction of the heavenly cloud arrow. Buzz! The extremely powerful 5 elemental arrows were instantly neutralized by the jade talisman in front of him. Seeing the situation before him clearly, Yishan immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. The jade talisman just now was made by a sovereign. However, the jade talisman itself couldn't withstand the full power of a sovereign, so the power of the attack was slightly weaker. Heavy losses, but fortunately he didn't use the jade talisman to attack me. After the jade talisman was used, all 5 heavenly cloud arrows were destroyed. This made Knight Sorrow's heart ache. There were only a total of 9 heavenly cloud arrows strengthened by the sovereign stone. After losing 5, it was impossible for him to use 5 elemental arrows again. What should I do? Knight Sorrow observed the other 3 divine kings in the dark abyss. He discovered that the yellow light shot by Tianyan Bao was no longer powerful, and the divine king was about to break free. The other 4 divine king were still locked in a stalemate. He thought for a moment, and then he made up his mind and said, "My strength is at a disadvantage, and I can mainly rely on my virtue energy and formidable divine artifacts. The damage to the heavenly cloud arrow is indeed great, but I can still summon it." After pondering for a moment, Knight Sorrow summoned the jar of the sovereign artifact from his spatial artifact. Activating his divine essence energy, he blasted it towards the divine king Yan. Although the jar was severely damaged and looked like it could collapse at any moment, after it was blasted out, Yan immediately felt threatened. It said in surprise, "I didn't expect that a mere divine lord like you would be richer than some rulers. You can take out a sovereign artifact as you please. What you can't imagine is yet to come." While the divine king of fire fury was fighting against the earthen jar, Knight Sorrow held the remaining 4 sky cloud arrows in his hand. At the same time, the heavenly samsara halberd shrunk and turned into an arrow. He shot out another 5-element arrow. Although the heavenly samsara halberd was not a sky cloud arrow, it was much more powerful on its own. Combined with the other 4 sky cloud arrows, it was no weaker than the previous attack. Facing this attack, the divine king of fire fury immediately widened his eyes. He only had 1 jade talisman in his hand, and it had already been used. Facing the earthen jar and the 5-element arrow, he had no confidence in blocking them. The divine king of fire slaughter had just escaped from the pursuit of Tianyan Bao's light. He immediately took out a black umbrella from his spatial artifact and smashed it towards the earthen jar. The black umbrella emitted rays of black light, suppressing the earthen jar and forming a stalemate. Lord Leader, Fire Slaughter has done his best. The rest is up to you. After binding the earthen jar, the Divine King of Fire Slaughter transmitted his voice to the Divine King of Fire Fury. All right. I'll try my best. You're just a Divine Lord. The Divine King of Fire Fury only mentioned the Divine King, and not the Dominator Divine Weapon. Clearly, he was trying to encourage himself. Facing the 5-element arrow, he made up his mind and said coldly, "You underestimate my ability." After saying this, Fire Fury immediately threw out the battle blade in his hand, causing the Dominator Divine Weapon to self-destruct in the void. Boom. After a loud explosion, the void was destroyed beyond recognition. The 5-element arrows shot out by Night Sorrow were all shot down. Among them, the 4 sky cloud arrows were all destroyed. Although the heavenly Samsara halberd was made of special materials and was not damaged, it was still impacted. Kiki, without the help of the Dominator Divine Weapon, you are definitely not my match. After self-destructing the Divine Weapon, the Divine King of Fire Fury revealed a sinister smile. Its murderous intent made people feel terrified. However, Night Sorrow did not show any fear. He charged forward with the Tianyan Bao in his hand. He directly turned the Tianyan Bao into a close combat weapon. Facing the self-destructing Divine King of Fire Fury, Night Sorrow had the Tianyan Bao in his hand, so he was not afraid of the other party in close combat. The Divine King of Fire Fury, who was in human form like Night Sorrow, was at a disadvantage and immediately transformed into its original form. Its original form was very tall, like a dark blue mountain, and there were 9 mouths on its head. After transforming into its original form, the Divine King of Fire Fury immediately used its 9 mouths to spit out flames. These 9 mouths all spat out black flames, but they had different attributes. Su Changtian, who was hiding in Night Sorrow's spatial artifact, immediately warned, "Night Sorrow, be careful. It spits out 9 types of evil flames from the Abyss Magic Pool. It is very corrosive, and if it touches your skin, your flesh will rot." "Don't worry. I will be careful." As Night Sorrow replied, he noticed that the Divine King of Fire Slaughter was faintly suppressing the clay pot. On the other side, the 4 God Kings were still locked in battle. Not a single one of them was able to lend him a helping hand. He made up his mind, and while dodging the 9 types of flames, he poured a large amount of blood into the Tianyan Bao. He even poured his heart's blood into it. He activated the Tianyan Bao again. Buzz. After a huge tremor between heaven and earth, the Tianyan Bao was activated again. This time, he did not have a single arrow in his hand, and the heavenly Samsara halberd was also severely damaged. Night Sorrow suddenly released the power of virtue in his body, turning it into the shape of an arrow, and used the Tianyan Bao to shoot at the Divine King of Fire Fury and the Divine King of Fire Slaughter. Yi Shang roared as the arrow of virtue was shot out. "Damn it! Damn it!" He used the green rock soul-rending roar towards the Divine Kings of Darkness who were watching the battle from afar, but did not dare to make a move. In an instant, Night Sorrow brought pressure to the Divine King of Fire Fury, the Divine King of Fire Slaughter, and the Divine Kings of Darkness present. Not good. "Lord Leader, I can't stop it." At this time, the Divine King of Fire Slaughter, who was resisting the clay pot, immediately shouted. He realized that he could not stop the arrow of virtue at all. In fact, it was not only him, but Fire Fury also realized that the situation was not simple. Chapter 2759. I can't block it either. The Divine King of Fire Fury also panicked when he saw the arrow of virtue shooting toward him. Although he was very strong, he had used a lot of energy to come to the divine world from the dark abyss. He had less than 1/10 of his strength left. He had a high level of comprehension, but he couldn't display his true strength. The Divine King of Fire Fury felt very aggrieved at this moment. The Divine King of Fire Slaughter, who was resisting the clay jar, felt even worse. He couldn't escape at all. He could only watch as the arrow of virtue shot into his body. The arrow of virtue didn't make much noise when it pierced through the Divine King of Fire Slaughter. However, His dark body was immediately purified into a golden color. Fire Slaughter roared. "You want to kill me? I, the Divine King, won't let you have it easy." He then chose to self-detonate. However, his self-detonation had no effect on Night Sorrow. It only bombarded the clay jar. The clay jar was already severely damaged. After being bombarded by the self-detonation of a Divine King, the cracks on it became even more terrifying. It looked like it was about to shatter completely. As for the self-detonation of the Divine King of Fire Slaughter, the final result was that he turned into the power of virtue and was absorbed by Night Sorrow. After absorbing the power of virtue of the Divine King of Fire Slaughter, Night Sorrow felt that the power of virtue in his body was increasing rapidly. However, it was still some distance away from reaching the level of a mid-level Divine Lord. However, Night Sorrow judged that if he could kill all the Dark Divine King of Fire Slaughter and all the other Divine Lords present, there was a high chance that his power of virtue would reach the level of a mid-level Divine Lord. This speed of increase in strength was unprecedented. However, Night Sorrow, who had experienced a great battle, didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. His foundation was also very stable. "Even if I die, I won't let you have it easy. Everyone heed my command. All Divine Kings and Divine Lords, attack Night Sorrow and end this trip to the Divine Realm with self-destruction." Facing the arrow of virtue, the Divine King of Fire Fury, who had no way of dealing with it, gave his subordinates one last order before he self-destructed. Following that, it chose to self-destruct as well. However, unlike the Divine King of Blazing Slaughter, a portion of the Divine King of Blazing Fury's self-destruction was still directed at Night Sorrow, even though the arrow of virtue had consumed most of its energy. So much energy was consumed by the arrow of virtue, but there was still so much power left in the explosion. It seems that it must have been very powerful when it was at its peak. Night Sorrow, who was affected by the Divine King's explosion, immediately used the virtuous Dragon Lock array to seal himself in a sealed space. The Divine King of Flame Fury's self-detonation smashed into the virtuous Dragon Locking formation and immediately shattered the sealed space. However, the remaining energy was not that terrifying, and Night Sorrow easily withstood it. After withstanding the Divine King of Blazing Fury's final attack, a large amount of virtuous energy immediately surged into his body, causing his virtuous energy to swell and take a step closer to becoming a mid-level Divine Lord. In another change, the two Dark Divine Kings fighting against the Void Beast Divine King and the Bai and Divine King received orders from the Divine King of Blazing Fury and cooperated with the other Divine Lords to charge at Night Sorrow. The ferocity of their self-detonation made one's heart palpitate. However, Night Sorrow chose to use Tianyun Bao to block at the critical moment. With Tianyun Bao's counterforce, the shockwaves from the self-detonation did not cause too much of a commotion and dissipated. However, the virtuous energy that these dark creatures had turned into filled Night Sorrow's body and raised his virtuous energy to the level of a mid-level Divine Lord. After stabilizing himself for a while, he felt his entire body relax. "Night Sorrow, you're truly getting stronger the more you fight." Su Changtian couldn't help but sigh in praise when he discovered that Night Sorrow's virtuous energy had risen from a low-level Divine Lord to a mid-level Divine Lord. "Your strength is rising very quickly, but the prerequisite is that you kill the dark creatures and not be killed." Night Sorrow knew that he was one step closer to becoming a Divine King, and his emotions were somewhat complicated. After replying to Su Changtian, he looked at the Divine King of the Void Beast race, Su Xiaoya, and the Divine King of the Baiyan race, Ma Yingjun. He asked, "How do the two of you feel?" "Many thanks for saving us. I will never forget the favor of saving us." The Void Beast race's Divine King, Su Xiaoya, and the Baiyan race's Divine King, Ma Yingjun, were both taken aback for a moment before cupping their hands and bowing to Night Sorrow. "There's no need for the two of you to be so polite. Killing the dark creatures is the duty of the Divine World's cultivators." Night Sorrow said politely, then regretfully said, "It's a pity that I came too late. Your races have suffered great losses." "Benefactor, can you tell us your name and origin?" The Void Beast race's Divine King, Su Xiaoya, immediately asked after Night Sorrow spoke. After being saved, he naturally wanted to repay the favor. At this time, the Baiyan race's Divine King, Ma Yingjun also spoke. If not for Benefactor's rescue, my Baiyan race would have been wiped out today. Please tell us your name. In the future, my Baiyan race will repay this favor. My name is Night Sorrow, the domain lord of the immortal divine realm. Night Sorrow replied. Su Xiaoye and Ma Yingjun exchanged a look when they heard this. The two of them had heard that He Gemin Tianai had gifted this area to the immortal divine realm. They hadn't expected to meet under such circumstances. Su Xiaoye thanks Domain Lord Night Sorrow. From today onwards, my Baiyan race will be at your disposal. Su Xiaoye didn't think too much about it. He bowed again to Night Sorrow and handed over a jade tablet. In human form, he no longer had the aura of a dark creature. Sensing the pure energy of the Divine King, Night Sorrow nodded and said, If there's a need, I'll ask. In addition, the creatures of the Dark Abyss have built a teleportation formation and a summoning formation in the Soundless Ocean. I don't know when they'll descend upon us. Is there no way to dismantle those two formations? Su Xiaoye immediately asked when he heard that. It's probably impossible to rely on brute force. I'll contact He Gemin Tianai after this and see if he has a way. Night Sorrow said, then looked at Ma Yingjun, who was about to speak, and said, The Baiyan race has suffered great losses. There's no need for you to promise Night Sorrow anything. As long as you can focus on developing your race and recover, I'll be very happy. Ma Yingjun promises Domain Lord Night Sorrow that I won't make a move against the immortal divine realm as long as I live. Furthermore, if the immortal divine realm is in danger, I'll lead the Baiyan race to assist with all my strength. Ma Yingjun swore an oath to the heavens. If not for Night Sorrow's appearance today, his entire Baiyan race would have been sacrificed. That would have been the end of his race. The gratitude he felt for Night Sorrow couldn't be described with words. Chapter 2760. Great Ancestor? It's you? You're still alive. That's great, that's great. Su Xiaoye knelt on the ground excitedly when he saw Su Changtian. Su Changtian had died a few hundred reincarnations ago, so he did not expect to see him again. I'm dead, but Night Sorrow has a way to bring me back to life. From now on, the Void Beast clan will fight for the immortal dominion. Su Changtian's tone was firm as he gave the order. Yes, Xiaoye will follow the great ancestor's order. Su Changtian's aura could not be faked. Su Xiaoye was very sure that he was the real Su Changtian. He felt a little sad facing the great ancestor. Originally, he was not the only God King in the Void Beast clan. However, the other two God Kings had already been sacrificed. Xiaoye, don't despair. When we first arrived in the divine world, the great ancestor was the only great ancestor. Didn't we still develop? In the future, I will disappear for a period of time. When I reappear, I hope to see the Void Beast clan rise again under your leadership. Su Changtian knew what Su Xiaoye was thinking, so he encouraged him. Su Xiaoye, who was kneeling on the ground, looked determined when he heard that. Xiaoye will not let you down, great ancestor. All right. Take the remaining members of the Void Beast clan and return to the palaces. Take all the resources and follow Night Sorrow to the immortal dominion. Su Changtian said one last thing before returning to Night Sorrow's spatial artifact. He could not use too much energy, or he would not be able to recover even with the secret technique of the 33 astral souls. Yes, Su Xiaoye replied respectfully. He then looked at Night Sorrow and said, Dominion Night Sorrow, Xiaoye is going to bring the Void Beast clan to the immortal dominion. I hope you will not mind. Haha, clan leader Xiaoye, don't say that. The immortal dominion will provide a place for the Void Beast clan to develop again. Night Sorrow promised. He wouldn't bring Su Xiaoye and the others to the Domain Master's Manor, because the Domain Master's Manor in the Undying Divine Region would remain a mystery. Ma Yingjun was slightly tempted when he saw that Su Xiaoye had chosen to join Night Sorrow. However, he quickly rejected the idea. The Ma Yingjun tribe was arrogant and unruly. They preferred to develop on their own. After bidding farewell to Ma Yingjun, Night Sorrow and Su Xiaoye led the remaining members of the Void Beast race back to their ancestral grounds, the group of palaces. When they approached the group of palaces, Su Xiaoye said, Actually, this group of palaces wasn't built by my Void Beast clan. That's why many of the formations can't be activated. So that's how it is. I was wondering why there wasn't a single formation here. After hearing Su Xiaoya's explanation, Night Sorrow's doubts were finally resolved. After finding the vast heaven pagoda and confirming that Yun Tianyi, Cao Linger, and the others were all safe, Night Sorrow opened his mouth to ask, Patriarch Howling Moon, do you know who established this cluster of palaces? I'm really not sure about that. However, I can bring you into the core area. You can make your own judgment. Su Xiaoya replied. Then he ordered the remaining members of the Void Beast race to use their spatial artifacts to collect everything they had accumulated, and some other things. Meanwhile, he led Night Sorrow and the others into a secret realm. As soon as they entered the secret realm, Cao Linger's eyes lit up. She said, There's a very dense aura of treasures here. There seems to be a Dominator-grade artifact below. What? A Dominator-grade artifact is so worthless? After hearing Cao Linger's words, Night Sorrow wasn't the only one who was stunned. Yin Tianyi, Ho Lai, and the others were speechless. Su Xiaoya looked at Cao Linger in surprise and said, Are you sure about what you said? I'm from the Horn tribe. I never lie. Cao Linger glanced at Su Xiaoya and said, I didn't expect a Dominator-grade artifact to be hidden under the Void Beast race's territory. Su Xiaoya said excitedly. Then he said, Since the Dominator was the one who discovered this artifact, you should be the one to collect it. Since it was discovered in the Void Beast race's territory, it should belong to you. Clan leader Xiaoya, go ahead and check it out. Night Sorrow shook his head and gave the opportunity to Su Xiaoya. That's not good. Su Xiaoya hurriedly refused. Don't delay it anymore. Go. Night Sorrow had his own principles. He spoke again and asked Su Xiaoya to go ahead and check it out. Since he couldn't delay it, Su Xiaoya said, I'll go ahead and check it out. After collecting it, we can discuss how to split it. That's fine too. Night Sorrow nodded. After receiving a response, Su Xiaoya immediately dived down. He was a little surprised by Night Sorrow's generosity. After all, no one could refuse a Dominator-grade artifact. However, after diving down, Su Xiaoya soon discovered that he couldn't obtain the Dominator-grade artifact below. This was because it was in an activated state, and was controlled by the artifact spirit. It had an owner. It was guarding its owner who was about to awaken. After being warned by the artifact spirit, Su Xiaoya reluctantly returned to the surface and told Night Sorrow and the others what had happened. A Dominator-grade artifact guarding its owner. It seems like it's at least a Dominator-grade being. It's very likely that he or his race built this place. Night Sorrow guessed. He felt that if Su Xiaoya's words were correct, then the entire palace might have been built by the being below. Should we continue to investigate? Yun Tianyi, who hadn't spoken for a long time, asked. Then she continued, I don't think there's a need to investigate the owner of the palace. Since there's someone sleeping below, let's leave immediately. Night Sorrow said to the others after sensing the existence below with his divine spirit. He didn't sense the aura of a dark creature. Alright. Let's return to the immortal sacred realm. The three of us will prepare to break through to the godly monarch realm when we return. Zhu Yunxia said. After coming out, she, Ho Lai, and Geng Chen had suffered a huge blow. They felt that those below the godly monarch realm were ants that couldn't do anything. Alright. I'll provide everyone with sufficient resources. Night Sorrow looked at Zhu Yunxia, Ho Lai, and Geng Chen and said, I understand that you want to break through quickly. However, the biggest taboo in cultivation is to advance rashly. Remember to accumulate resources. Otherwise, the gains won't make up for the losses. Captain, don't worry. We know what we're doing. Ho Lai smiled. When they were in the Divine Feather Realm, their cultivation level was higher than Night Sorrow's, but now, the tables had turned. Moreover, Night Sorrow had killed the Divine King of the Dark Abyss with the help of the Dominator-grade artifact and the power of virtue. It was impossible for them not to be envious, but they knew their own limits. It seems like the relationship between the members of the Immortal Dominion is different from other factions. Interesting. Chapter 2761. After returning to the Immortal Divine Realm, Night Sorrow led Su Xiaoya and the other void beasts to a natural lake. He gave them the area within a few 100,000 miles to develop on their own. The void beasts led by Su Xiaoya had originally lived at the bottom of the soundless ocean, a place that couldn't see the light of day. Now that they were officially in the god world, he was in a good mood. He treated Night Sorrow and the others well before letting them leave. After leaving the new territory of the void beasts, Night Sorrow didn't immediately return to the Domain Master Manor in the immortal divine realm. Instead, he went to the Domain Master Tianye's territory to look for him. However, when he arrived, he was told that Tianye wasn't there. He then told Tianye's subordinate, the Divine King Bei Chun, about the soundless ocean. Only then did he return to the Domain Master Manor. There were only 2 materials left to activate the Heaven's Eye Stone and Parasol Tree Grass. Night Sorrow would recognize these 2 items if he saw them, but he didn't have any clues about them. When Night Sorrow returned, Wu Lingfei was still in seclusion. It was rare for him to have some time to rest, so he spent it with his wives in the Domain Master Manor. Under the influence of his wives, Jing Yin received the most companionship and rested for 3 months. Night Sorrow entered the Clear Sky Pagoda to cultivate the immortal divine art. His power of virtue had reached the level of a mid-level divine lord. If he cultivated in peace, his cultivation, body, and soul wouldn't encounter any bottlenecks. He would be able to become a mid-level divine lord soon. However, Night Sorrow was special. He could challenge the Divine King as a low-level divine lord. The amount of resources he needed to become a mid-level divine lord was terrifying. After absorbing resources for 500 years in the Clear Sky Pagoda, he wasn't far from becoming a mid-level divine lord. In another 500 to 1,000 years, he would become a mid-level divine lord. However, one day, Xikong Qiu came to inform Night Sorrow that Wu Lingfei had come out of seclusion and had successfully become a low-level divine lord. Night Sorrow came out of seclusion immediately. Seeing Wu Lingfei in high spirits after her breakthrough, Night Sorrow was so happy that he almost cried. He still remembered Wu Ling concubine's disappointment when she was first rescued. At that time, her heart ached so much that she couldn't control herself. Concubine Fei, congratulations. Advanced to the Divine Lord realm. After pondering for a while, Night Sorrow organized his thoughts and finally said a few simple words. Wu Lingfei was overjoyed. Although I'm still very far away from the sovereign and the Divine King, at least I've caught up a little. Haha. With Auntie Fei's talent, her future was limitless. You should adjust yourself for a few days. Once you have completely adapted to the divine sovereign realm, we will head to the Phoenix ancestral land. Isn't that the reason you came to the god realm? Yi Shang revealed a trace of a smile. He felt very gratified to be able to do something for Wu Lingfei. Yes. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Wu Lingfei smiled and nodded, not saying anything. But in her heart, she thought the so-called Phoenix ancestral land is just a set of words. This was a small interlude, and Night Sorrow didn't notice it. Afterward, he asked Daoi and the others to prepare a banquet to celebrate Wu Lingfei's breakthrough. At this point, the people of the Night Moon dynasty had completely gained a foothold in the god realm. They only needed the heaven and earth concealment array to be invincible. Night Sorrow felt a lot less pressure because of the eternal supreme domain. Everyone drank to their heart's content. After the banquet, there was almost no one who wasn't drunk. After the banquet, Night Sorrow rested in the Domain Master's manor for 3 days. While Wu Lingfei was adjusting to the Divine Lord realm, he smashed the jar in his hand. He used the sovereign-grade materials on the jar to completely repair the heavenly Samsara halberd. After absorbing a large amount of sovereign-grade materials, the heavenly Samsara halberd was not only restored to its original state, but also upgraded to a half-step sovereign-grade divine artifact. Night Sorrow also used it to recreate the Forbidden Spear. The Forbidden Spear had the same name as before, but its power was vastly different. The destructive power of the Samsara attribute was on full display. After repairing the heavenly Samsara halberd and recreating the Forbidden Spear, Wu Lingfei still hadn't come out of seclusion. Night Sorrow once again rushed to the Soundless Sea by himself. When the hairless Taoist had detonated the lid of the jar, they had left in a hurry and hadn't been able to carefully observe the teleportation and summoning formations. He was prepared to do a thorough investigation before heading to the Phoenix ancestral grounds. When Night Sorrow arrived at the Soundless Sea's teleportation and summoning formations, he discovered that Hegemon was observing the two formations with his hands clasped behind his back. He immediately stepped forward and greeted, "Lord Hegemon, let's just call you Brother Tni. I feel awkward hearing you call me Lord Hegemon." Hegemon had already emphasized to Night Sorrow how to address him, but Night Sorrow still felt that it was inappropriate to call him Brother Tni. Now that Hegemon brought it up again, Night Sorrow replied, "All right. In the future, I'll call you Brother Tni. Brother Tni, do you have any way of dispelling these two formations? One of them can be used to teleport to the Dark Abyss, while the other can be used to summon creatures from the Dark Abyss." Hegemon said, then continued in a domineering tone, "Of course we can dispel them. However, we only need to destroy one of them to return to the Dark Abyss. As for the summoning formation that doesn't require a blood sacrifice, we'll just keep it." That's true. With Brother Tni here, no matter how many creatures are summoned from the Dark Abyss, they won't be able to pose a threat to the God Realm. Night Sorrow immediately agreed upon hearing Hegemon words. Hegemon chuckled. "This is the immortal divine realm. Even if creatures of darkness are summoned, it should be you, an immortal sovereign, who should deal with them. Leave them for me? That's fine too." Night Sorrow was surprised at first, but he didn't think much of it. "As long as they don't come, I'm confident in dealing with them. If a Dominator rank creature descends, it will be a realm war. Not only me, but other Dominators will also rush over. Don't worry. As for creatures of darkness below the Hegemon level, they'll be of great help to you in increasing your strength. I won't let anyone else deal with them. I'll try my best to become a divine king as soon as possible." Hegemon patted Night Sorrow on the shoulder in a friendly manner. "I'll do my best. I just hope that as many creatures of darkness are summoned as possible." Night Sorrow thought for a moment. He felt that Hegemon reasoning made a lot of sense. "Give me your divine artifact," Hegemon suddenly said. "Which divine artifact? Is it Tianyan Bao?" Night Sorrow asked. Chapter 2762. What? The Samsara halberd might have been tainted by something unclean? Upon hearing this, Night Sorrow was stunned. He hadn't noticed this at all. Without any hesitation, he took the Samsara halberd off his back and handed it to Hegemon Hegemon took the halberd and hovered it in the air. After sizing it up, he scolded, "Why aren't you showing yourself in front of me? You go your own way and I'll go mine. Why are you meddling in other people's business?" As soon as Hegemon spoke, an extremely gloomy, resentful voice rang out from the Samsara halberd. "There really is something unclean here. Is it because I let the Samsara halberd absorb the jar fragment?" Upon hearing this evil voice, Night Sorrow immediately went on guard. Meanwhile, Hegemon smiled and said, "Night Sorrow is both my junior and my friend. How can I allow a weakling like you to harm him?" "Who are you calling weakling? You weren't even there when I became a Hegemon." The evil entity within the Samsara halberd was enraged by Hegemon rebuke. It was a Hegemon from many reincarnations ago. By a stroke of luck, a sliver of its soul had been left behind. It had attached itself to the Hegemon artifact jar, and devoured the jar's damaged artifact spirit. After Night Sorrow had used the Samsara halberd to absorb the jar's energy, it had entered the Samsara halberd. It had been waiting for an opportunity to attack Night Sorrow's soul during their battle. As it saw it, even if its soul had been damaged, it would still be far stronger than a divine lord. The era that belongs to you has already passed. Why do you have to rely on your stubbornness to commit such atrocious acts? Hegemon tone gradually turned icy. Although Night Sorrow's soul is no longer inferior to yours, I still don't want you to remain by his side as a hidden danger. Ha ha ha. How can a divine lord's soul be stronger than mine? Are all Hegemons this ignorant? The soul within the Samsara halberd said noncommittally. However, it was still deeply afraid of Hegemon. "Hurry up and leave or I'll kill you." Hegemon tone gradually turned icy. If the discarnate soul didn't leave, he was prepared to attack. If you want to destroy me, this halberd will definitely be destroyed as well. The remnant soul's cold voice came from inside again. Now he was no longer an artifact spirit, but an evil spirit. I've already given you a chance, but you didn't grasp it. Hegemon let out a cold snort, then reached out with his hand and grabbed the halberd, pulling the soul out of it. As soon as it was pulled out, the remnant soul immediately screamed, but to no avail. Hegemon said coldly, "Be destroyed." Then he made a move and shattered it. After that, the remnant soul completely disappeared from the world. Thank you, Brother Tianai, for helping me find this remnant soul. After Dominator Tianai dealt with the Dominator remnant soul, Knight Sorrow immediately thanked him. Actually, you can also deal with him by yourself, but there is a certain degree of danger. Hegemon said, then continued. Next, I'll set up a formation here. That way, you'll be able to sense it as soon as any dark creatures are summoned. Next, he set up a formation in front of them. Once the formation was complete, he looked at Knight Sorrow and said, "Pour your blood into the formation and activate it. That way, your soul will be able to sense what's going on here at any time." "Alright, Brother Tianai." Knight Sorrow agreed, then poured his blood into the formation. After just 3 drops, he could sense that he was connected to the formation in front of him. It was an extremely mysterious feeling. "Alright, I'm going to return to the Hegemon's manor and continue my seclusion." Hegemon glanced at Knight Sorrow and said, "If you have the time, go to Cloud Immortal Continent and take a look. The battle there is getting more and more intense. If possible, protect Tianyan School." "I understand, Brother Tianai." Knight Sorrow nodded. Protecting Tianyan School was Xiao Tianxuan's wish, so he would do as he was told. Seeing that Hegemon was about to leave, he asked, "Brother Tianai, where in the God realm can I find Heaven's Eye Stones and Wutong Grass?" "Heaven's Eye Stones and Wutong Grass?" Upon hearing Knight Sorrow's words, Hegemon muttered to himself, "I'm not sure about Heaven's Eye Stones. However, Wutong Grass should only grow around Wutong trees. As for Wutong trees, they usually appear in phoenix nests." "Phoenix nests? That's perfect." Hegemon words reminded Knight Sorrow of the Phoenix ancestral grounds. "What a coincidence," he said. "Thank you, Brother Tianai, for clearing my doubts. If there's nothing else, I'll be heading back." If there's nothing else, let's go." Hegemon waved his hand, then vanished. Knight Sorrow immediately returned to the Undying Divine Region's Domain Master Manor. As soon as he did, Xianjizi came forward to report, "Captain, today, some of the Divine King's subordinates attacked our Undying Divine Region." "Oh, what kind of attack?" Knight Sorrow asked, frowning. "It's just some minor friction for now. Logically speaking, it's normal, but the number of Divine King's factions that have a problem with the Undying Divine Region seems to have increased," Xianjizi explained. As it turned out, the number of Divine King's factions that had a bone to pick with the Undying Divine Region had increased to 4. Some even came from the All-Heaven Dominion's territories. Our Undying Divine Region is second only to the 7 Dominion's territories. It's inevitable that we'll be envied. If you want to wear a crown, you must bear its weight. This sort of thing is inevitable. Knight Sorrow analyzed the nature of the situation. Also, we do need to focus on nurturing our forces. We can't possibly fight every battle by ourselves. We'll do our best. However, the Undying Divine Region has only just been established. There are many things that aren't on the right track yet. Xianjizi then began to talk about the other difficulties the Undying Divine Region was currently facing. "The first step is always the hardest. Brother, you and the others should do your best. Use the resources as you wish. If there's anything you can't solve, come find me," Knight Sorrow said. After a moment's thought, he added, "I'll be accompanying Aunt Fei and Jingyan to the Phoenix Ancestral Grounds today. During this time, the Undying Divine Region might encounter some trouble. If there's no other choice, we'll have to give up some territory. When I return, we'll take it back." "This alright." Xianjizi nodded. If there were more than 2 Divine King in Knight Sorrow's absence, he and Jin Ye would have a hard time dealing with them. Chapter 2763. Understood, brother. Xianjizi nodded and handed Knight Sorrow some information. This is the situation of the major factions attacking the Immortal Dominion. The 4 Divine King factions attacking the Immortal Dominion were the Dark Moon Dominion, All Heaven Dominion, Illustrious Dominion, and 7-Star Dominion. The Dark Moon Dominion and 7-Star Dominion bordered the Immortal Dominion, so friction was inevitable. The Divine King of the All Heaven Dominion and Illustrious Dominion were far away from each other, so it was a little too much. All Heaven Dominion and Illustrious Dominion. Very good. We'll settle this score slowly. Crossing over to fight had to be approved by the Dominion. Knight Sorrow had a lot of opinions about the All Heaven Dominion and Illustrious Dominion. However, the enemy's attack was still in the probing stage, so it wasn't urgent. The most important thing now was to find the Heaven's Eye Stone and Parasol Treegrass, and activate the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array. Only after ensuring Night Moon's safety could Knight Sorrow let go and do some things. After some thought, Knight Sorrow handed Su Xiaoye and Ma Yingjuan's jade talismans to Xianjizi. These are the jade talismans of the 2 Divine Kings. If the Immortal Dominion is in danger while I'm accompanying Aunt Fei to the Phoenix Nest, summon them immediately. Including Jin Ye. We have at least 3 Divine Kings. We should be able to turn the tide. Good. In addition to Senior Tianqing, we have at least 4 God Kings present at this crucial moment. Xianjizi relaxed a lot after receiving the jade talismans. The Immortal Dominion had just been established, so it didn't have many troops under its command. They could only rely on these top forces. Senior Tianqing is in seclusion. Don't look for her unless it's absolutely necessary. Knight Sorrow said one last thing to Xianjizi before heading to Wu Lingfei's seclusion. Now that the Immortal Dominion was being targeted, time was of the essence. They had to hurry to the Phoenix ancestral grounds. When he found Wu Lingfei, she was still adjusting to the Divine Lord realm. Jingyan was giving her pointers. After all, she was from an ancient family and had been a Divine Lord for some time. Husband, you're back? Aunt Fei's talent is very good. In another 2 or 3 years, she should be able to completely stabilize her cultivation. Upon seeing Knight Sorrow's arrival, Jingyan immediately spoke. I'm afraid we don't have the time. Currently, our immortal domain is being targeted. This is just a probing attack, but as time passes, I'm afraid the domain chief's mansion will be threatened. Therefore, we have to speed up our journey to the Phoenix ancestral land. Knight Sorrow looked at Jingyan and Wu Lingfei. Then let's go quickly. If we can really obtain the relevant resources, our strength will definitely soar. At that time, it will be a good thing for the Immortal Dominion. Wu Lingfei immediately stood up and said when she heard Knight Sorrow's words. Aunt Fei, while I'm on my way, you can continue to stabilize your cultivation with Jingyan in the Clear Sky Pagoda. However, time should be tight. Knight Sorrow said. He immediately summoned the 2 women into the Clear Sky Pagoda and hurried to inform his other wives. Then, he left the domain chief's manor and headed to the Phoenix ancestral land left behind by the Supreme Phoenix. The Phoenix ancestral land was equivalent to a small world hidden in the void. Ordinary people couldn't enter even if they discovered it because they didn't have any tokens. Knight Sorrow had met the Supreme Phoenix and had some of his aura on him. Naturally, he could enter. When he arrived at the entrance of the Phoenix ancestral land, Knight Sorrow was immediately sucked into a teleportation array. Aunt Fei, Jingyan, come out. We're here. After being sent to the Phoenix ancestral land by the teleportation array, Knight Sorrow immediately called the 2 women out of the Clear Sky Pagoda. In front of them was a small world that was scorching hot. There were countless sycamore trees. These sycamore trees didn't look too tall, but the forest was dense and filled with immortal chi. We should be at the edge. Can you feel anything? Knight Sorrow opened the eye of the sea serpent and observed for a while. However, he didn't see anything in the sycamore forest, so he asked. Jingyan and Wu Lingfei had the phoenix bloodline flowing in their bodies. If there was an opportunity in the small world, they should be able to feel it. I don't feel anything special. After Knight Sorrow opened his mouth to ask, Wu Lingfei shook her head and said. Jingyan similarly didn't feel anything and said, Me too. Linger, you come out and sense it a bit. See if you can find any aura. The two girls did not feel anything special. Night Sorrow immediately summoned Cao Ling'er out of the clear sky pagoda. This was the only Horn clan member that he carried on him. Alright. Big brother Night Sorrow. Cao Ling'er spent more time with Night Sorrow recently. Furthermore, her strength rose very quickly, and her mood was pretty good. After coming out of the clear sky pagoda, she used the two horns on her head to sense the small world. After roughly an hour, Cao Ling'er's brows were tightly locked as she said, "This place seems to be a little strange." "How strange?" Night Sorrow asked in puzzlement. "The natural treasures here seem to have all become spirits." Cao Ling'er said a sentence and continued describing, "Maybe it's because the small world has existed for too long. Some things with spirits here have all already become spirits, and are no longer those kind of natural treasures of inanimate objects. If the bloodline or tail feathers left behind by sovereign ancestral phoenix became spirits, would it be too cruel for us to go and kill and plunder again?" When Jingyun heard Cao Ling'er's words, she immediately revealed a difficult look. Wu Lingfei mused for a while and said, "If we need to strangle other lives to improve ourselves, I'd rather not have this kind of lucky chance. What you all said makes sense, but I feel that we still need to observe a little more." Night Sorrow opened his mouth and said a sentence, then continued, "Because sovereign ancestral phoenix, as an existence surpassing sovereigns, there's definitely a reason for letting us come." At this time, Cao Ling'er suddenly screamed and said, "Ah, they're here." At the same time, she rubbed her head nonstop. Clearly, her divine soul suffered an impact. Lingfei, quickly consume these 2 medicinal pills. Night Sorrow hurriedly took out 2 medicinal pills and handed them to Cao Ling'er for her to consume. At this time, countless colorful phoenix-like birds flew over from the horizon. Among them was a fire phoenix. When it flew close to Night Sorrow, Wu Lingfei and Jingyun, it signaled for them to stop. Floating in the air, it said, "Are you the fated ones that Lord spoke of? We've been waiting for you for countless reincarnations." Sovereign ancestral phoenix had become a sovereign and left the god realm. Countless reincarnations had passed since then, and they had indeed waited for a long time. What instructions did Lord Sovereign Ancestral Phoenix leave behind? Yishan asked as he raised his head to size up the extremely dazzling fire phoenix in the air. Chapter 2764. Milord left behind an opportunity, but you need to pass the test to obtain it. At this point, the Inferno Phoenix released her divine soul and scanned the 3 of them carefully. Then she said disappointedly, "You are too weak. I suggest that the 3 of you break through to the Divine King before attempting the test. Otherwise, your lives will be in danger." Lord Phoenix Ancestor said that once I break through to the Divine Lord realm, I can bring people to seek out this opportunity. Night Sorrow had no intention of retreating. He couldn't wait until he reached the Divine King realm. You might be blindly confident in your own strength. The flame phoenix floating in the sky gently flapped its wings, and boundless flames immediately attacked the 3 of them. At the same time, the flame phoenix said, "This level of flame attack is only 1% of the final test strength. You had best back off. This phoenix doesn't want to personally kill the fated person that Milord has chosen. This level of attack can't hurt us." The flames released by the flame phoenix were truly scorching hot, capable of incinerating all things. However, Night Sorrow, Jingyun, and Wu Lingfei were all able to withstand it. This was especially true for Jingyun and Wu Lingfei, who had the phoenix bloodline and didn't fear this heat. You're Milord's descendants. However, you shouldn't be able to pass the final test." The flame phoenix saw that her attack didn't have much effect and immediately confirmed that Jingyun and Wu Lingfei's phoenix bloodline wasn't weak. But after thinking about the test left behind by the phoenix ancestor, she shook her head. "We choose to begin the challenge immediately." After being burned by the flames, Wu Lingfei immediately felt a sense of intimacy that she had never felt before, and her fighting spirit soared. Although Jingyun and Wu Lingfei had only met a few times, they were both descendants of the phoenix ancestor, so she felt the same way. She also said, "Please allow us to accept the test. Since you've made up your mind, there's no harm in starting it. However, you'll be responsible for your own life and death." The flame phoenix in the sky saw that the two women were determined and had no intention of backing down. So she reminded them. She looked at Night Sorrow and said, "Do you want to start the challenge as well?" "Me? Aren't I here to help? You can also start the challenge yourself?" Yishan asked doubtfully when he heard Huofeng's question. "Although you don't have the phoenix bloodline in your body, you have the aura of my lord, so you can naturally start the challenge. If you succeed, your harvest won't be less than theirs," the fire phoenix explained. At the same time he looked at Cao Linger, shook his head and said, "As for her, she is not qualified to challenge." "What does that have to do with me?" Cao Linger was speechless. She had no intention of participating in the challenge at all. If it wasn't for Night Sorrow blocking the flames, she wouldn't have been able to withstand it. Since that's the case, I choose to start the challenge as well. Night Sorrow did not hesitate and immediately started the challenge. At the same time, he stored Cao Linger into the vast heaven pagoda. "Good. You will be sent to 3 different small worlds. What you need to do is to survive and find a way to pass the test." The fire phoenix asked, "Are you ready?" "Ready," Night Sorrow, Wu Lingfei, and Jing Yun said at the same time. The moment the other party was about to open the small worlds, Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to Jing Yun. "Take care of yourself. If the test is difficult to pass, then cultivate patiently until you pass the test. Time in the divine realm is the most worthless thing. Husband, you have to take care of yourself too." Jing Yun, who received the transmission, looked at Night Sorrow and smiled at him. Then she released her battle intent. In the Night Moon Dynasty, she had been controlling her sharpness. At this moment, she finally erupted. "Good. I will take care of myself." Yishang also glanced at Jing Yun. Although he didn't know what the ancestral phoenix sovereign's test and reward were, he had a strange feeling in his heart. He was slightly worried. However, he could not stop Jing Yun from searching for opportunities. At this time, Wu Lingfei looked at Night Sorrow and saw that his expression was not good. She immediately comforted him. "Don't worry. Jing Yun's bloodline is several times stronger than Aunt Fei's. She will be fine." I believe that will be the case." Night Sorrow nodded and looked at Wu Lingfei. "Aunt Fei, if you encounter an invincible creature inside, remember to use the king-grade divine talismans I gave you. Those things can save your life at a critical moment." "Don't worry. Although Aunt Fei is a newcomer in the divine realm, I have experienced countless battles in the lower realm," Wu Lingfei said and hugged Night Sorrow. Then she looked at Huofeng and said, "Please let me enter the challenge as well." "Good. Get ready," Huofeng replied and sent Wu Lingfei into the small worlds. "I originally thought that this would be a dangerous place similar to the cave abode, where I could find many treasures." After Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei were sent away, Yishang sighed emotionally. "Master is not dead, and he is living well in the eternal supreme world. How could his cave abode and inheritance have fallen into such a state?" Huofeng replied disdainfully when she heard Night Sorrow's words. Night Sorrow felt that her words made sense. However, he did not immediately start the challenge. Instead, he asked, "May I ask if I can find the parasol tree grass here?" "Parasol tree grass? Why are you asking about it?" Huofeng thought for a moment and looked at a demon spirit behind her. "Your original form is the parasol tree grass, right?" "Yes, Lord Huofeng." The parasol tree grass turned into a demon spirit and replied, "May I ask if there is any parasol tree grass that has not turned into a demon spirit? I need some to set up a formation." Night Sorrow looked at the parasol tree grass and asked. Naturally, he could not use the parasol tree grass to activate the heaven and earth concealment formation. "There is one parasol tree grass here, and that is me." The parasol tree grass looked at Night Sorrow and shook its head. Obviously, it was a little timid. Night Sorrow was at a loss when he saw its timid look. He continued to ask, "Is there any way for me to get some parasol tree grass? Isn't it said that parasol tree grass is the companion of the parasol tree? There should be a lot of it." Huofeng replied when she heard Night Sorrow's words. "The parasol tree is in Master's habitat, and you can only go there after passing the test. If you want to get the parasol tree grass, think of a way to pass the test. If you can do it, The other two can also help you pick the parasol tree grass. Alright. Then help me activate the test left behind by Ancestor Phoenix. Obviously, he could not bear to kill the parasol tree grass, so he asked Huofeng to activate the test. Upon hearing Yishang's words, the flame phoenix in the sky immediately sent him to a small world. It's so hot. Chapter 2765. The terrifying heat felt like it was going to incinerate him. Night Sorrow looked up and realized that the small world in front of him was completely made up of fiery red. The ground was filled with liquid lava, with only a small amount of rocks. There was no way to walk. He could only advance by flying. How do I pass this test? Night Sorrow, who was leaning against the small world's barrier, opened the sea serpent's eye and observed for a while. He then used his divine sense to investigate. He didn't find any feasible route. Therefore, he flew straight ahead aimlessly. After flying in the air for a while, Night Sorrow suddenly saw a group of creatures appear in the magma on the surface. These were some dark brown lava earth dragons at the Divine Lord level. There were about 10 of them. Their aura wasn't particularly strong, but Night Sorrow immediately felt a sense of danger when they locked onto him. Oh, intruder die. As for these earth dragons, they had clearly gained intelligence and were aware that Yi Chang was the challenger. When they saw him, they immediately launched a ferocious attack. Just as these dark brown lava earth dragons attacked, a golden-red king-tier earth dragon drilled out from the lava. I just encountered some king-tier creatures. No wonder the fire phoenix said that I need to be at the divine king's level to start the challenge. While using the Samsara halberd to resist the flames, Night Sorrow focused on the king-tier earth dragon. After this king-tier earth dragon appeared, it didn't howl or do anything. However, being stared at, Night Sorrow felt like his divine sense was being roasted. That strange burning sensation made him feel very uncomfortable. 33 Heaven's secret combat technique. At this moment, Night Sorrow activated the green phoenix armor and the 33 Heaven's secret combat technique to remind himself of his strength. Then he used the dragon roaming heaven steps and used the Samsara halberd to attack some of the king-tier earth dragons below. The Samsara heavenly halberd was already a half-step dominator grade divine weapon, and Night Sorrow's strength wasn't inferior to an ordinary divine king's. Under his attacks, the earth dragons in the lava started to die one by one. The king-level earth dragon didn't react much when the god monarch-level earth dragons were killed one after another. However, the king-level earth dragon kept roasting Yi Shang's divine soul, making Yi Shang feel as if he was being burned. In the beginning, this kind of roasting didn't cause any actual damage, but over time, it became very terrifying. Night Sorrow even felt that he was like a frog being boiled in warm water. After fighting for so long, he felt as if his spirit was about to split apart. He felt as if his divine soul was about to explode. Fortunately, I have 2 divine souls. Otherwise, with the state of my divine soul, I wouldn't be able to fight normally. One of the deity seas was burning unbearably. Night Sorrow immediately used the soul power of the other deity, sea, to lock onto the king-class earth dragon below. However, at this moment, more than a dozen roars came from the lava. The divine monarch-level earth dragons that Night Sorrow had slain were actually reborn one by one in the lava swamp. Isn't it said that a phoenix can rise from the ashes? How come even earth dragons can rise from the ashes now? Looking at the earth dragons before him, Night Sorrow couldn't help but feel a wave of emotions. He wondered if the secret of rebirth was hidden in this small world. However, time was of the essence. He could feel that the second deity sea was being roasted again. He immediately attacked the evil king-class earth dragon furiously. Oh! At this moment, the king-class earth dragon that hadn't moved until now finally revealed its entire body. It was 1,000 times larger than Night Sorrow's body, and dozens of times larger than the surrounding Divine Lord-level earth dragons. It looked like a monster that could blot out the sky and the sun. It gave off an indomitable feeling. If a king-class earth dragon can rise from the ashes, this king-class earth dragon should be able to do the same. I wonder how I can deal with it. Night Sorrow, who was floating in the void, was a very small existence compared to the king-class earth dragon. Sky-burning dragon flames. Just as Night Sorrow was thinking about how to deal with the king-class Earth Dragon, the huge Earth Dragon attacked first. It spat out a column of fire that was so hot that it changed the color of the void. Seeing the column of fire, the newly reborn Earth Dragons were so scared that they dove into the lava swamp. Night Sorrow immediately understood that this flame was definitely not simple. Fiery demon subduing flames. Facing the column of fire, Night Sorrow immediately shot out a flame that contained the aura of the ancestral phoenix. It collided with the flame spat out by the king-class Earth Dragon. The flame that Night Sorrow shot out with the Samsara halberd was in the form of clouds of fire. It was different from the column of fire spat out by the king-class Earth Dragon, but it wasn't much weaker. After being shot out, the flames that filled the sky quickly gathered together and formed a wall of fire in front of Night Sorrow, blocking the column of fire. The two different flames burned together and instantly created a terrifyingly high temperature. The surrounding void was instantly incinerated, burning one huge black hole after another. It looked extremely terrifying. However, the column of fire attack by the king-class Earth Dragon was successfully neutralized by Night Sorrow. The aura of the ancestral phoenix in the Samsara halberd played a crucial role. It had a restraining effect on the king-class Earth Dragon. You have some skills, but you still have to die. You're still a little weak when it comes to fighting with this king's flame power. Seeing that the attack didn't pose any threat to Night Sorrow, the Earth Dragon King immediately roared and spat out a round ball of fire into the air. It roared, "Have a taste of this king's natal fire origin bead." The huge natal fire origin bead looked like a small sun. It was shot out directly at Night Sorrow. The closer it was to Night Sorrow, the hotter it became. It's really uncomfortable to be roasted like this. Passively taking a beating isn't a solution. I have to go all out. Unknowingly, Yishang felt his second spirit sea burn unbearably again. While he was on guard, forming the Divine Essence dragon-locking formation, Xiaochen locked the natal fire origin bead within. Then he took out the heavenly cloud bow and shot out 3 heavenly cloud arrows. In the previous battle, all 9 heavenly cloud arrows had been destroyed. Thus, he had created 20 new ones. 9 of them had been strengthened with the Sovereign Stone. The 3 that he shot out weren't strengthened. Sovereign Artifact? Good, very good. With the Sovereign Artifact, this king won't be bound to this small world anymore. The king-class Earth Dragon roared excitedly when it saw Night Sorrow take out the Tianyun bow. You want to steal the Sovereign Artifact and escape from this small world? You're dreaming. As Night Sorrow spoke, the 3 heavenly cloud arrows that hit the natal fire origin bead immediately exploded, causing the natal fire origin bead to be severely damaged. He had intentionally used this tactic of harming the enemy while harming himself. These heavenly cloud arrows hadn't been strengthened by the Sovereign Stone, so they weren't that valuable. Chapter 2766. Do you think that this king's natal fire essence orb is so easily damaged? Seeing that Night Sorrow had used the 3 heaven cloud arrows to damage his natal fire essence orb, the king-tier Earth Dragon laughed in a deep voice. It immediately spat out 3 flames on the damaged natal fire essence orb. After being burned by the flames, the natal fire essence orb immediately recovered to its original state. At this moment, Night Sorrow's godly soul was being roasted in the flames and felt even more uncomfortable. At this moment, Night Sorrow, who felt that this was not the way to go, suddenly had an idea. He started to make use of his opponent's godly soul attack to strengthen his own godly soul. After the immortal divine art was activated, although his opponent's godly soul attack was still there, at the same time, the strength of his godly soul started to be strengthened. The strength of his godly soul started to catch up with the power of merit, slowly increasing towards the level of a mid-level divine lord. You know how powerful I am? Go to hell. The Dominator divine weapon is this king's. The king-tier Earth Dragon obviously did not expect that Night Sorrow would choose to strengthen one of his deity Cs under such circumstances. Then he would use the other deity C to fight. It thought that the natal fire essence orb had completely suppressed Night Sorrow and spat out 3 more flames. This time, the 3 flames were red, orange, and gold respectively. The degree of heat was extremely shocking. After absorbing the 3 flames, the natal fire essence orb's attacks immediately became more ferocious. As it spun in the air, it continuously shot out beams of fire at Yi Shan. If not for the fact that Night Sorrow's body was strong enough, he would have been incinerated by the flames. Tianyun Bao, you want to absorb these flames? Just as Night Sorrow was trying his best to resist the flames, he suddenly felt that Tianyun Bao seemed to be activated on its own. It seemed to want to devour the flames to strengthen itself. However, its will was a little vague. Night Sorrow didn't quite understand it. He could only feel Tianyun Bao's trembling. He couldn't completely decipher its thoughts and directly placed it in the void. Placed in the air, Tianyun Bao absorbed all the flames shot out by the natal fire essence bead. After absorbing to a certain extent, Tianyun Bao suddenly let out a bao sound. After the bao vibrated for a moment, a small flame suddenly appeared on the bao. Although these flames looked very gentle, they increased Tianyun Bao's power by a lot. So you didn't know that you can absorb blood and fire. Seeing the changes in Tianyun Bao, Night Sorrow suddenly understood that absorbing blood was not the only way for Tianyun Bao to become stronger. After pondering for a moment, Night Sorrow took out a strengthened heaven cloud arrow. He plucked Tianyun Bao from the void and shot it directly at the Emperor rank Earth Dragon. Tianyun Bao's heaven cloud arrow, which had been activated by the pure flames, immediately burned with scorching flames. Using fire techniques against this King Earth Dragon? Facing Tianyun Bao's heaven cloud arrow, the Emperor rank Earth Dragon snorted contemptuously. It swept its huge tail over, wanting to shatter the heaven cloud arrow. However, what it didn't expect was that this heaven cloud arrow not only contained a trace of Dominator rank power, but the flames on it were also very shocking. It directly pierced through its tail and spun behind it before shooting towards its head. King's Inferno. To the Emperor rank Earth Dragon, the heaven cloud arrow looked like an embroidery needle. However, the terrifying power it contained made it not dare to underestimate it. It immediately spat out its most powerful origin flames. What a terrifying flame! When the King's Inferno was spat out, Night Sorrow could feel the sky change color. Even with the strength of his body, he wouldn't be able to last long if he was burned by this flame. He, who was still using the flames from his natal fire origin orb to strengthen his divine soul, didn't dare to use the King's Inferno to strengthen his divine soul. At the same time, after this flame was spat out, it directly burned and destroyed the strengthened heaven cloud arrow. This was the first time the heaven cloud arrow had been so easily destroyed by the divine king. Night Sorrow was very shocked. However, at this time, Tianyun Bao once again flew out of Night Sorrow's hands with a boom. It absorbed all the King's Inferno in the void. This king's origin flames. Spit out this king. Seeing its origin flames being absorbed by Tianyun Bao, the Emperor rank Earth Dragon immediately roared. The origin flames in its body were formed gradually after accumulating for tens of thousands of reincarnations. It was very precious to it. Now that it was all absorbed by Tianyun Bao, how could it not feel uncomfortable? So this is the origin flames, no wonder it's so powerful. Tianyun Bao absorbed all the King's Inferno of the Earth Dragon, and immediately flew back to Night Sorrow's hands. Night Sorrow, who was lamenting, immediately felt the flame released by his natal fire origin orb drop by a lot. His strengthened divine soul was no longer under any pressure when facing this kind of flame attack. At this time, Night Sorrow didn't immediately use Tianyun Bao to attack the Emperor rank Earth Dragon. Instead, he used the flames from his natal fire origin orb and the immortal mantra to strengthen his body, gradually increasing his body's strength. However, there was still a certain distance to the level of a middle divine lord. Bastard! You actually used this king's method to strengthen yourself in battle. The Emperor rank Earth Dragon gnashed its teeth in hatred when it saw Night Sorrow's method. But after thinking for a moment, it didn't explode. Instead it shouted, "Challenger! Return this king's origin flames, and this king will consider you a pass. I will also tell you how to open the next checkpoint. Your suggestion is very good, but things are not under my control. Let's continue the battle. Take my arrow." The Emperor rank Earth Dragon's words moved Night Sorrow, but he wasn't a 3-year-old child. How could he return the opponent's trump card and continue to withstand the opponent's attacks? After replying, he took out 5 heavenly cloud arrows. He shot the 5 elements arrow burning with flames towards the huge Emperor rank Earth Dragon. The 5 elements arrow with the Emperor rank Earth Dragon's origin flames was extremely terrifying. After shooting it, it immediately caused the Emperor rank Earth Dragon's face to change color. It directly fled back into the lava swamp. Looks like without the origin flames, you have no strength to fight at all. You don't even want your natal fire origin orb anymore. The 5 elements arrow chased into the lava swamp. Night Sorrow began to use the clear sky pagoda to collect the natal fire origin orb in front of him. The flames that this natal fire origin orb spewed out could be used to cultivate the strength of the body, and could also be used to strengthen the divine soul. The effect was extremely great. To the current him, it was absolutely a good thing. At the beginning, although Night Sorrow tried his best to absorb it, he couldn't completely absorb it into the clear sky pagoda, because the Emperor rank Earth Dragons will still remain in the natal fire origin orb. Chapter 2767. After about 10 breaths of time, the 5 elements arrow flew out of the lava swamp. The Earth Dragon's roar completely disappeared, and the Earth Dragon's will in the natal fire origin pearl also disappeared. Obviously, the Earth Dragon had been killed by the 5 elements arrow. Night Sorrow used this time to keep the natal fire origin pearl in the clear sky pagoda, and made it recognize him as its master. Although the intensity of the flames on the life fire origin bead that was stored in the clear sky pagoda was not as strong as the Earth Dragon's origin flames, it was completely destructive to a god lord. It could even threaten a god king. It was very useful. Night Sorrow used his divine soul to sense it, and nodded in satisfaction. At this time he muttered, "Even a Sir God level Earth Dragon can be revived. It should be the same for a King tier Earth Dragon. When you revive, let's fight again." While waiting for the King tier Earth Dragon to revive, Night Sorrow used the natal fire origin pearl to strengthen the first divine sea and his body. Just as the first divine sea's divine soul reached the level of a middle level Sir God. In the lava swamp, there was a loud dragon roar. This dragon roar was filled with endless anger. It immediately shook the lava in the swamp and sent it flying. "You caused me to lose my life. Challenger, you will die here. Your Dominator divine weapon will become this king's." After the King tier Earth Dragon was revived, its body was 100 times smaller. It looked about the same size as a Sir God level Earth Dragon. However, its divine king aura had a significant change. It had risen from a low-level divine king to a middle-level divine king. Its strength had a significant increase. If Tianyun Bao can kill you once, he can kill you a second time. Let me give you a piece of advice. If you don't want to be completely killed, choose to submit and let me pass. Night Sorrow looked at the revived King tier Earth Dragon. Although its aura had increased, it was not as dangerous as before. "You want to pass? Unless you kill this king. Go to hell." The King-class Earth Dragon clearly had a violent temper. Without wasting any time, it leaped into the air and attacked Night Sorrow. Before its rebirth, it had always used flames to attack. Who would have thought that its first attack would be a close-range attack? Good timing. Night Sorrow was not used to the Earth Dragon's constant fire attacks. Night Sorrow wielded the heavenly Samsara halberd, and unleashed the forbidden spear that he had just comprehended. The heavenly Samsara halberd, which was already a half-step sovereign weapon, unleashed a new forbidden spear attack. The spear left Night Sorrow's body and pierced through the void toward the Earth Dragon King. The King-class Earth Dragon might have the cultivation of a middle-level divine king, but it was still pierced through and sent flying. Roar! The King-class Earth Dragon King had never imagined that Night Sorrow would be able to pierce through it and send it flying without using a sovereign weapon. It was so angry that it immediately roared. As the King-class Earth Dragon roared, all the Divine Lord-level Earth Dragons in the lava swamp flew out of the swamp and turned into fire energy that entered its body. At the same time, a fire crystal core also rose from the bottom of the lava swamp. After absorbing all the energy in this fire crystal core, the King-class Earth Dragon's cultivation advanced to that of a high-level Divine King. Its strength had increased qualitatively. It actually advanced from a low-level Divine King to a middle-level Divine King so quickly, and then to a high-level Divine King. Why does it feel so illusory? While Night Sorrow sighed, he also knew that the rules of this small world were set by the ancestor Phoenix Sovereign. He had to face this Divine King Earth Dragon that had advanced to a high-level Divine King. A few days ago, he had been able to rely on Tianyun Bao to defeat high-level Divine King opponents, because the two Dark Divine Kings had come to the Divine World from the Dark Abyss and lost most of their strength. On the surface, they appeared to be high-level Divine Kings, but in reality, they only had the strength of a middle-level Divine King. But now, the King-class Earth Dragon had truly advanced to a high-level Divine King. A high-level Divine King against a low-level Divine Lord. Even with the help of a sovereign weapon, death is certain. After advancing to a high-level Divine King, the King-class Earth Dragon's aura had become much more terrifying. He coldly threatened Night Sorrow and blasted out a strike. This time, Night Sorrow used the Samsara Halberd to unleash the same forbidden spear strike, but he was unable to block it at all. At the crucial moment, Tianyun Bao released a defensive energy that prevented Night Sorrow from being seriously injured. The gap between a low-level Divine Lord and a true high-level Divine King was too great. Even though Night Sorrow was astonishingly talented and had a deep foundation, it was still very difficult for him to fight. Heavenly Cloud 5 Elemental Arrow. After being sent flying, Night Sorrow stabilized himself in the void and immediately shot the Heavenly Cloud 5 Elemental Arrow at the King-class Earth Dragon. However, the 5 Elements arrow that had once killed an Earth Dragon at the level of a lower Divine King was directly neutralized after it was shot out this time. Even my strongest attack can't harm it. It seems like there's no point in continuing this battle. The King-class Earth Dragon's strength had advanced by leaps and bounds. Night Sorrow made a quick assessment, and determined that he was currently no match for it. He used the profound heaven-roaming dragon art, and began to flee. However, the King-class Earth Dragon, which had advanced to a high-level Divine King, was also terrifyingly fast. Even after using the profound heaven-roaming dragon art, Night Sorrow was still unable to shake off the distance between them. What should I do? As the King-class Earth Dragon continued to close in on him, Night Sorrow kept thinking of a solution. If he kept fleeing in the void, he would definitely be caught. After pondering for a while, Night Sorrow dived directly into the lava on the ground. You can't even escape in the void. If you enter the lava controlled by this king, you'll die even faster. Seeing Night Sorrow fleeing into the lava, the King-class Earth Dragon immediately let out a raging roar. However, its speed did not decrease at all, and it continued to chase after him. It seems like I have to take a risk. Night Sorrow, who was fleeing, immediately used his divine soul to control Tianyun Bao, and made Tianyun Bao fly out of the lava swamp. As for himself, he dived into the lava swamp. When the King-class Earth Dragon saw Night Sorrow and Tianyun Bao fleeing in different directions, it hesitated for a while and immediately chased after the Dominator Divine Weapon Tianyun Bao. In its opinion, Night Sorrow was no more than an ant to it, and was no longer a threat. However, the Dominator Divine Weapon Tianyun Bao was something that could change its fate. It was obvious that it would make such a choice. When the King-class Earth Dragon chased after Tianyun Bao, Night Sorrow immediately entered the Clear Sky Pagoda, and used all kinds of resources to cultivate. Currently, he was at a complete disadvantage when facing the King-class Earth Dragon. The main reason was that his cultivation level was too low. Currently, his power of merit, first godly soul, and the toughness of his body had basically reached the level of a middle-level Divine Lord. He was prepared to quickly raise his cultivation level to that level. As long as he broke through to the level of a middle-level Divine Lord, with the heavenly Samsara Halberd and Tianyun Bao as his support, he could once again attempt to challenge the King-class Earth Dragon. Brother Night Sorrow, you have to do your best. Before Night Sorrow began to cultivate, Cao Linger said with tears in her eyes. She was very worried about Night Sorrow's safety and her own fate. Night Sorrow was suppressed to the point that he even had to throw out Tianyun Bao. This made her very afraid. Chapter 2768. Linger believes that Big Brother Night Sorrow can bring Linger through this crisis. Cao Linger said timidly and found a spot to cultivate in the vast heaven pagoda. It was just that she was born extremely sensitive, and could not calm her heart at all. After Cao Linger left, Night Sorrow calmed his mind in an instant, and entered a cultivation state. The current him forgot about Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei, forgot about his family, even forgot about Tianyun Bao and the king rank earth dragon, wholeheartedly immersing himself into cultivation. With the help of the immortal divine art, driven by the power of virtue, spending 400 years, Night Sorrow finally raised his cultivation to middle-level divine lord level. After easily transcending the tribulation, he thoroughly became a divine lord in name and in reality. Inside the vast heaven pagoda, 400 years passed. In the outside world, for years should have passed. I wonder how Tianyun Bao is doing. Standing in the small world anew, Night Sorrow felt the powerful strength brought about by middle-level divine lord realm. Immediately, a strong confidence in defeating the king rank earth dragon rose. But 4 years had already passed. Tianyun Bao had already left Night Sorrow's perception range long ago. Searching for a while in the scorching small world, he still did not find any clues. The king rank earth dragon was also completely not in the lava swamp. Tianyun Bao himself did not have an artifact spirit. Night Sorrow was somewhat worried. Linger, come out and help big brother Night Sorrow to sense. See if you can find Tianyun Bao's aura. Seriously, without any way, he summoned Cao Linger out from the vast heaven pagoda. Cao Linger appeared in the scorching small world, and immediately felt very uncomfortable. That kind of heat, she could not quite withstand it. At this time, Night Sorrow released his divine domain, enveloping her inside. Thank you, big brother Night Sorrow. Only then did Cao Linger feel much more comfortable use her dual horns to sense. Sensing for a while, she furrowed her brows and said, "Directly east. Can't sense exactly how far away." "Good. Let's head east." Cao Linger sensed Tianyun Bao's aura. Night Sorrow immediately relaxed and rushed towards the east. After traveling at full speed towards the east for 7 days and 7 nights, Night Sorrow suddenly heard the sound of fierce fighting ahead. He immediately drew a concealment array around himself and began to observe. It was a battle between a king-tier earth dragon and a divine king realm fire dragon sparrow. Tianyun Bao, on the other hand, floated in the void, radiating brilliance. It was obvious that the two of them were fighting over Tianyun Bao. After fighting for a while, the fire dragon sparrow and the earth dragon king stopped. After recovering for a while, the earth dragon said, "You and I have been fighting for 4 years, and we are still evenly matched. It's time to think of a solution today. Find a way? What could he do? Whoever obtains the sovereign artifact will be able to pass the trial set by the Lord, leave this small world, and obtain the fortuitous opportunity left by the Lord." The fire dragon sparrow laughed disdainfully. "Are you going to let me have the sovereign artifact? Naturally, it's impossible for me to give it to you, but we can use it together to leave this small world." The Earth Dragon King replied in a deep voice. The two of them were emitting intense flames. If the high god Cao Linger was outside, she wouldn't be able to withstand the flames. Pass the trial? What trial is it? Night Sorrow, who was hiding in the concealment array, was immediately curious after hearing the fire dragon sparrow's words. After all, he had come to this small world to pass the trial. Now, it seemed that the trial was the same for him and the other king-tier life forms. Whoever passed the trial first would obtain the fortuitous opportunity left behind by the ancestor phoenix. I wonder how Jing Yin and Aunt Fei are doing now. If the trial they received was the same as mine, then it would be too difficult for them to pass. Even if they could protect themselves, who knows how many years it would take for them to pass the trial. Thinking about Jing Yin and Wu Lingfei, Night Sorrow began to worry. Although the two of them had good bloodline talents, they didn't have the strength to defeat the Divine King. If the trial was the same, it would be very difficult for them. Haha, use it together? Then who will use Tianyun Bao at the crucial moment? The Fire Dragon Sparrow didn't believe the Earth Dragon King at all. For years ago, when the Heavenly Cloud Bao reached this place, it completely lost control and floated quietly in the void. The Fire Dragon Sparrow, who happened to be passing by, immediately started fighting with the Earth Dragon King. The two fought for 4 years, using all their means, but still unable to determine a victor. If I call back Tianyun Bao now, I might be pursued by the two of them. I should be able to defeat the Earth Dragon King. or the Fire Dragon Sparrow with my current strength. But if the two of them work together, it will be very difficult to deal with. Knight Sorrow put away his worries, hid his aura, and patiently observed the battle between the Earth Dragon King and the Fire Dragon Sparrow. Right now, he could use his godly soul to summon Tianyan Bao, but that would make him a target for everyone. Therefore, he didn't choose to do anything. Instead, he patiently observed and waited for the right opportunity. At this time, the Earth Dragon King continued to talk to the Fire Dragon Sparrow. The two of us are the weakest kings in this small world. If we continue to hesitate and stay here, we will encounter other experts. You should know what the consequences will be. This is the intersection of our territories. The other 5 kings have no reason to be here. The Fire Dragon Sparrow was still unmoved by the Earth Dragon King's words. This made the Earth Dragon King very unhappy. After a moment of silence, he continued, "That's when they don't know about the Dominator Divine Artifact. Now, I will spread the news about the Dominator Divine Artifact." "You are crazy!" The Fire Dragon Sparrow roared angrily. "The situation is a bit complicated. We can only wait and see what happens." After hearing the conversation between the Earth Dragon King and the Fire Dragon Sparrow, Knight Sorrow knew that things weren't going well. If his guess was correct, another king-level entity would be arriving soon. It was impossible for the Earth Dragon to summon all 5 king-level entities at once. His biggest advantage was that he had received Tianyan Bao's acknowledgement and could summon him at any time. However, he definitely couldn't summon him at this time. Otherwise, he would be chased endlessly in this small world. Is it possible to form an alliance with the kings here? At this time, Knight Sorrow began to consider this possibility. The kings in this small world were undoubtedly very eager to leave. However, they had been trapped here for many years and were definitely very suspicious. It would be difficult to convince them. With this thought in mind, Knight Sorrow felt that this matter could be considered, but he needed the right opportunity. Therefore, he quietly waited for the other kings to arrive. The Firebat King is about to arrive. Dragon Sparrow King, what do you think? Chapter 2769. Attitude? You are inviting a wolf into your house. The Firebat King is ranked 4th among the 7 kings, but his nature is the most savage. Aren't you courting death by summoning him? The Dragon Sparrow King looked at the Earth Dragon King with anger. If we don't have the Dominator artifact, the two of us might not be his opponent. But if we join forces now, killing him is not difficult at all. The Earth Dragon King said coldly. He continued, however, if you don't agree to cooperate, think about what will happen to you. Between his brows, there was always a trace of confidence. How can this king be sure that you didn't join forces with him? The Dragon Sparrow King looked at the Earth Dragon King with suspicion. Their territories were adjacent, and they understood each other's nature very well. I swear, as long as you cooperate with me and let me temporarily control Tianyan Bao, I will bring you out of this small world. The Earth Dragon King said solemnly. No matter what you say, don't you still want to take the Dominator artifact for yourself? I don't agree. The Dragon Sparrow King's face was full of anger. He was not as tactful as the Earth Dragon King, and did not have any friendship with the other kings in the small world. At this moment, he was extremely passive. It doesn't matter if you don't agree. When the Firebat King arrives, you will be the first to be killed. The Earth Dragon King continued. Think about it, is the Dominator artifact more important than your life? Don't threaten me. Even if I die in battle, I won't let a loach like you get the Dominator artifact. At worst, I will cooperate with the Firebat King to kill you, and let you draw water with a sieve. The Dragon Sparrow King clearly did not want to lower his head to the Earth Dragon King. Then let's wait and see. The Earth Dragon King's face revealed a trace of a cold smile. It was very obvious that he had his own plans. See, I think you should just go and die. The Dragon Sparrow King did not have any advantage in interpersonal relationships. At this moment, he ignited his bloodline power and attacked the Earth Dragon King again. I knew you would fight with your life on the line. This king is not afraid of you. The Earth Dragon King also ignited his bloodline power and fought against the Dragon Sparrow King. I I don't believe that with your strength, you can scheme against the Fire Bat King. In the end, you won't be able to obtain the sovereign artifact. After Dragon Sparrow King exploded, his entire body burned with fire. He looked like a phoenix. You don't have to worry about how to scheme. The Earth Dragon King had a well-thought-out appearance. Seeing the situation in front of him, even Night Sorrow could not figure out where the Earth Dragon King's confidence came from. If he had some powerful trump card, wouldn't it be better to just kill Dragon Sparrow King directly? If he didn't have a backup plan to summon the Fire Bat King, he would feel very uncomfortable. I understand. The Earth Dragon King's scheme was very likely not only about Tianyun Bao. With his strength, he could not set up such a grand scheme at all. Behind him, there should be an extremely powerful king. After carefully pondering for a while, Night Sorrow recalled the matter of the Earth Dragon King continuously increasing its strength in his territory. Suddenly, he figured out some things. The 7 kings in this small world should all have very terrifying methods in their own territories. At this moment, Tianyun Bao was staying here. It should be because the person behind him wanted to use the sovereign artifact to lure the king out. As for why he would continuously fight with Dragon Sparrow King for 4 years, it should be because he wanted to complete the show. While Night Sorrow was pondering, the Earth Dragon King and Dragon Sparrow King were still fighting to a draw. However, Dragon Sparrow King's expression had completely changed. He realized that no matter how much he increased his strength, the Earth Dragon King would always be able to fight to a draw with him. This proved that the Earth Dragon King's true strength should be stronger than his. Since he is stronger than this king, why did he waste 4 years? Dragon Sparrow King, who discovered this problem, immediately panicked. He understood that things were not simple. He completely realized that whether it was him or his territory, they were all chess pieces in the hands of the Earth Dragon King. Who is behind you? Dragon Sparrow King, who reacted, immediately panicked. You've thought it through? Then I can't let you stay. Go in peace. Originally, I wanted to let you wait for the Fire Bat King. Suddenly, the Earth Dragon King erupted with the strongest strength he had when fighting with Night Sorrow. If Night Sorrow could use his divine sense to investigate, he would be able to confirm that the Earth Dragon King had been hiding his strength in the battle just now. Conspiracy. There is a conspiracy here. The sovereign artifact is a conspiracy. The Earth Dragon King suddenly erupted. Dragon Sparrow King, who realized that something was wrong, immediately began to escape. At the same time, he shouted loudly. After transmitting the message to the Fire Bat King, this king sealed off the surroundings. What's the use of shouting? Go to hell. The Earth Dragon King laughed. Your mission is already over. After speaking, he made his move and prepared to completely end Dragon Sparrow King. He had already sensed the aura of the Fire Bat King. He was prepared to kill Dragon Sparrow King and pretend to be heavily injured to let the Fire Bat King enter the trap. However, at this time, the Earth Dragon King, who was slightly absent-minded, discovered that Dragon Sparrow King had actually completely disappeared in front of him. What's going on? How did he do it? The Earth Dragon King, who used his divine sense to investigate, could not find any trace of Dragon Sparrow King. It was as if he had completely disappeared. The Fire Bat King was about to arrive, but Dragon Sparrow King had disappeared in front of him. He was very worried that this would cause unnecessary trouble. Because the Fire Bat King's backer, the Fire Phoenix King, was the king that his backer, the Golden Wand King, wanted to deal with. The Fire Phoenix King was ranked second among the 7 kings. However, in the lava pool in her territory, she was immortal and could revive indefinitely. She had once injured the Golden Wand King in her territory and killed her spouse. The Golden Wand King, who was the strongest, had always wanted to get rid of her because of hatred. However, there was no way to lure the Fire Phoenix King out. Now that a sovereign artifact had appeared, she immediately had the thought of revenge. After all, no king could resist the temptation of a sovereign artifact. As long as they had a sovereign artifact in their hands, any one of them would have the opportunity to break through the barrier set by the Ancestor Phoenix, leave the small world in front of them, and obtain the opportunity left behind by the other party. The Fire Phoenix King obviously could not resist this temptation. Earth Dragon King, Didn't you say that you were evenly matched with Dragon Sparrow King? Where's Dragon Sparrow King? Also, why did you choose to call this king over? If you don't have a reasonable explanation, you should know the consequences. After the Firebat King arrived, he discovered that only the Earth Dragon King was present. Beside him was the sovereign artifact Tianyan Bao. He immediately opened his mouth to question. He did not know that the Earth Dragon King was the Golden Yuan King's subordinate. However, in front of the sovereign artifact he was very cautious. Firebat King, you should have sensed my battle with Dragon Sparrow King just now. Chapter 2770. After speaking, the Earth Dragon King looked at the Firebat King. He said, "You may not believe me, but the ruler artifact is here. You can feel it yourself and see if it's real. What you said is very reasonable. Moreover, the bow in front of us is a complete ruler artifact." The Firebat King released his divine soul power and sensed for a moment. After confirming that the heavenly cloud bow was a dominator artifact, he no longer bothered himself with the question of why the Earth Dragon King had called him over. Instead, he opened his mouth and asked, "Where did this dominator artifact come from?" The Earth Dragon King felt that there was nothing to hide in this matter. He immediately replied, "For years ago, the person appointed by the ancestor Phoenix entered my territory with this ruler artifact. However, he was defeated by me and abandoned the ruler artifact to escape. I chased after the ruler artifact all the way here. After arriving here, I engaged in a fierce battle with the Dragon Sparrow King for 4 years. I couldn't do anything to him, so I transmitted my voice to you." That makes sense. However, after the Dragon Sparrow King used a secret technique to leave, why didn't you take the ruler artifact for yourself? As long as you had the ruler artifact, I wouldn't have been your opponent. The Firebat King flapped his wings in the void and continued to ask doubtfully. "You arrived before I even had a chance to retrieve the sovereign artifact. If I took the ruler artifact in this situation, I would definitely be killed by you." The Earth Dragon King replied with an unhappy expression. "It's good that you know." The Firebat King smiled and said, "Don't worry. After obtaining the ruler artifact, I will give it to the Fire Phoenix King. She will bring us out of the small world." After speaking, the Firebat King reached out to take the Tianyan Bao. Seeing the Firebat King reach out to take the Tianyan Bao, Night Sorrow and the Dragon Sparrow King in the Clear Sky Pagoda shook their heads at the same time. Just now Night Sorrow had put the Dragon Sparrow King, who had nowhere to run, into the Clear Sky Pagoda. After hiding, the Dragon Sparrow King explained the distribution of forces in the small world. He also explained the conflict between the Fire Phoenix King and the Golden Yuan King. After connecting all the dots, Night Sorrow and the Dragon Sparrow King quickly understood the situation. He also guessed that if nothing unexpected happened, the third-ranked Golden Python King and the first-ranked Golden Yuan King would be hiding in the void near Tianyan Bao. Furthermore, the Golden Python King would attack the Firebat King, defeat her, lure the Fire Phoenix King here, and attack her. What Yi Shang wasn't sure about was whether the people hiding in the void had discovered his existence. Just now he had come very secretly. It was reasonable to say that Golden Python King and King Jinwan, who could not use the power of the Divine Soul, should not have discovered his existence. Do you think the two of you are worthy of obtaining a sovereign artifact? While Night Sorrow was pondering the cause and effect of this matter, the Golden Python King emerged from the void just as the Firebat Dynasty's sovereign artifact Tianyan Bao stretched out his hand. It spat out very poisonous flames at the Firebat King. "Aha! Do you think this king doesn't know of your schemes?" Facing the Golden Python King's attack, the Firebat King smiled and immediately flapped his wings at the Golden Python King. The highly toxic flames were all dispersed to the surroundings. Haha! When this matter was first planned, it was a conspiracy. Now that it has developed to this point, because of your arrival, it has become an open conspiracy. I don't believe that the Fire Phoenix King will watch you die without doing anything. The Golden Python King provoked. "You are not a match for this king. Let King Jinwan come out." The Firebat King obviously did not take the Golden Python King seriously. Hearing this, the Golden Python King laughed and said, Overestimating yourself is the right word to describe you. At the same time, he continued to attack. In fact, he also knew that the Fire Bat King and the Fire Phoenix King must know that King Jinwan was nearby. We all know that King Jinwan is here. If you want to fight, we will accompany you. The Fire Bat King, on the other hand, said indifferently and then started fighting with the Golden Python King. The reason why he chose to fight the Golden Python King despite knowing that King Jinwan was nearby was because he wanted to personally verify whether King Jinwan had already controlled the Dominator artifact. If King Jinwan controlled the Dominator artifact, the Fire Phoenix King would not come. Moreover, she would help the Fire Bat King resurrect. If King Jinwan did not control the Dominator artifact, the Fire Phoenix King would definitely come. The Dominator artifact was absolutely irresistible to them. It was enough to make them give up the unlimited resurrection lava pool in their territory. After that, the Fire Bat King and the Golden Python King each used their own methods and fought for 3 days and 3 nights. There was no sign of victory or defeat. King Jinwan, who was waiting in the void, sent a voice transmission to the Golden Python King. Deliberately waterproof, let him confirm that the Dominator artifact is not occupied by this king. Yes, Your Majesty. The Golden Python King originally wanted to let the Fire Bat King fall into a life and death crisis to lure the Fire Phoenix King out. However, after fighting for a few days, he discovered that his strength was actually on par with the Fire Bat King. Neither could do anything to the other. Therefore, he listened to King Jinwan's instructions and pretended to be defeated and fled, giving the Fire Bat King a chance to investigate Tianyun Bao. The Fire Bat King used the power of his soul to briefly investigate Tianyun Bao, and confirmed that there was absolutely no aura of King Jinwan on it. He immediately sent a voice transmission to the Fire Phoenix King. The Dominator artifact is not controlled by King Jinwan. However, there is the aura of the Challenger on it. The Dominator artifact was brought by the Challenger. It is normal for it to have his aura. After confirming that there was no aura of King Jinwan on Tianyun Bao, the Fire Phoenix King quickly descended on the scene. She was, as her name suggested, a huge fire phoenix. However, after descending, she immediately transformed into a human female cultivator. She quickly flew towards Tianyun Bao. You know that this king is here, yet you still dare to approach. It seems that you are willing to gamble your life for the Dominator artifact. Seeing that the Fire Phoenix King was closing in on Tianyun Bao's position, King Jinwan immediately walked out of the void. He blocked in front of the Fire Phoenix King and said coldly, "This king originally had the opportunity to take the Dominator artifact for himself, but he didn't do so in order to lure you out. Take revenge for killing his wife back then. She deserves to die. You deserve to die too." The Fire Phoenix King, who had transformed into her human form, was full of heroic spirit. She only said a few words and directly attacked King Jinwan. "Damn it, it's you?" King Jinwan let out a roar and rushed forward to meet them. While the Fire Phoenix King and King Jinwan were fighting, the Golden Python King, who had pretended to be defeated by the Fire Bat King, appeared again and fought with the Fire Bat King. Just as the Earth Dragon King was about to help the Golden Python King, the Fire Wyrm King suddenly appeared and fought with it. The two sides temporarily formed a situation of evenly matched strength. At this time, Night Sorrow sent a voice transmission to the Dragon Sparrow King. "Are you sure that you can pass Lord Supreme's test like that?" "Of course I'm sure. Lord Supreme personally told us about this matter," the Dragon Sparrow King said with certainty. "You have to be clear that your life is tied to my body. If something happens to me, you will definitely die too." The two sides of the battle were evenly matched. Night Sorrow felt that the time to take back Tianyun Bao had arrived. He confirmed the key to passing the test with the Dragon Sparrow King. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, the Dragon Sparrow King said, "Since it's like this, why would I lie?" Chapter 2771. Don't. Please don't. When Dragon Sparrow King heard Night Sorrow's words, he was shocked. "I think we should wait until both sides are injured before making a move. Both of them are people that the two of us can contend against." "What you said makes sense, but things have gone awry. We have to make a move now. Night Sorrow, who had already activated the sea serpent's eye, saw that there was a barrier around Tianyan Bao. After the Golden Wan King appeared and fought with the Fire Phoenix King, a clone of the Golden Wan King appeared. One of the Golden Wan King's doppelgangers appeared within the concealment boundary and began to collect the heavenly cloud bow without anyone noticing. This was something that Night Sorrow could not tolerate. Why must we make a move? Dragon Sparrow King still did not understand Night Sorrow's decision. Seeing his hesitation, Night Sorrow shook his head and explained. Right now, a clone of the Golden Wan King is trying to steal Tianyan Bao. If we don't make a move, Tianyan Bao will be taken away. What? The Golden Wan King has a clone? You can see it because you have special eyes? Dragon Sparrow King, who was looking at Tianyan Bao, was immediately shocked. He did not expect the Golden Wan King to have a clone. There was no doubt that if this stalemate continued, the Golden Wan King would become invincible once he obtained the Dominator artifact. He was already the strongest in this small world. Yes, that's why we have to make a move now. I can summon Tianyan Bao, but the Golden Wan King's clone will definitely attack me. When the time comes, we'll deal with him together. Night Sorrow explained. The others are basically in a stalemate. As long as we don't fight with our lives on the line, we'll be in a 2-on-1 situation. No matter how strong the Golden Wan King is, his clone will definitely not be able to defeat the two of us. Not necessarily. The Golden Wan King's strength has already surpassed the Divine King's. The two of us might not be his match. However, if I have the Dominator artifact, his clone will definitely not be my match. Dragon Sparrow King said as he observed the battle. Hearing this, Night Sorrow glanced at him and said, I believe you. Are you really going to lend me your sovereign artifact? The Dragon Sparrow King, who had been observing the battle, immediately turned to look at Night Sorrow. I said, I believe you. You control the Tianyan Bao and can suppress the Golden Wan King's clone. However, I believe that I am stronger than you, so there is no need for you to be in charge of Tianyan Bao. Night Sorrow said confidently. Then he shouted, Do it! You, a middle divine lord, are stronger than this king? When Night Sorrow summoned Tianyan Bao from the concealment array, the Dragon Sparrow Monarch muttered in disbelief. Night Sorrow didn't respond to the man's words. He continued to summon Tianyan Bao. Not good. Tianyan Bao has been restricted. Night Sorrow immediately realized that something was wrong. He used his divine sense to control Tianyan Bao, but he couldn't break free from the Golden Wan King's restriction. After a moment of silence, Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to the Dragon Sparrow King. Tianyan Bao can't break the array set up by the Golden Wan King. We need to attack immediately and break the array's defense. All right. It's a fight to the death no matter what. If we delay and allow the Golden Wan King to obtain the Dominator artifact, we will all die. The Dragon Sparrow King knew how bloodthirsty the Golden Wan King was. After Night Sorrow spoke, he didn't hesitate. He immediately took out a 5-colored magic treasure from his spatial artifact and threw it at Tianyan Bao. What's going on? Is someone after the Dominator artifact? The moment the Dragon Sparrow King made his move, he was discovered by some of the people fighting. When they saw that it was the Dragon Sparrow King, the Golden Wan King, who was fighting the Fire Phoenix King, immediately roared. How dare you try to steal the Dominator artifact while we are fighting? Dragon Sparrow King, how dare you? At the same time, he blasted the Fire Phoenix King aside and pounced at the Dragon Sparrow King. The Golden Wan King is using his clone to steal the Dominator artifact. The Dragon Sparrow King was so scared that he immediately retreated when he saw the Golden Wan King attacking him. Although he wasn't very strong, his speed was ranked 3rd among the 7 kings. He wasn't immediately caught by the Golden Wan King. What? The Golden Wan King has a clone and is trying to steal the Dominator artifact? After hearing the Dragon Sparrow King's words, the people who hadn't noticed the Golden Wan King's scheme immediately turned to look at Tianyan Bao. At this time, Night Sorrow activated the Treastrimsa battle secret technique. After becoming a mid-level Divine Lord, he could use the battle secret technique to increase his strength by 20 times. After his strength increased, Night Sorrow wielded the half-step Dominator artifact, the Heavenly Samsara Halberd, and directly attacked the array set up by the Golden Wand King's clone. Under these circumstances, he didn't have the time to think about how to break the array. He could only use brute force. As for the consequences, there was no time to consider. Boom. While everyone was still hesitating, the Dragon Sparrow King and Yishang's attacks landed on the array formation one after another. However, although their attacks caused serious damage to the array, they didn't immediately break it. The Fire Phoenix King and the others immediately understood that the Dragon Sparrow King was not lying when they saw their attacks being obstructed by the formation. As the Golden Wand King chased after the Dragon Sparrow King, the Fire Phoenix King, who had no one to stop her, immediately spat out a mouthful of dense phoenix flames in the direction of Tianyun Bao. After being burned by the phoenix flames, the array, which had already been damaged by Night Sorrow, immediately began to leak out. This time, everyone was completely certain that the Tianyun Bao they'd seen before was just an illusion. The Golden Wand King was secretly using his clone to secretly attack the Dominator artifact. Bastards! You're courting death. The Golden Wand King, who had been chasing after the Dragon Sparrow King, immediately turned back in anger when he saw Night Sorrow and the Fire Phoenix King attacking the array. He wanted to stop the two of them. As he turned back, he discovered that Night Sorrow was only a mid-level Divine Lord. The Golden Wand King angrily rebuked. How dare a mere Divine Lord Ant ruin this king's plans? Even if the Ancestor Phoenix is reborn, he won't be able to save you today. As he rebuked, he, who had transformed into his human form, viciously sent a palm strike at Night Sorrow. In his opinion, a mid-level Divine Lord wouldn't be able to withstand his attack. At the same time, the Golden Wand King looked at the Fire Phoenix King and said, "So what if you discovered me? What can you do to me? Aren't you blindly overconfident?" Night Sorrow sneered when he saw the Golden Wand King speak to the Fire Phoenix King as he attacked. With the help of the Sea Serpent Eye, he'd analyzed the path of the Golden Wand King's attack, and used the Divine Origin Dragon Locking Array to confine it. Finally, he'd used the Samsara Halberd to unleash a new Forbidden Spear Strike. When the half-step Dominator artifact struck the Golden Wand King's palm, he staggered from the impact. What's going on? The Golden Wand King hadn't expected Night Sorrow to be able to withstand his attack and cause such a huge backlash. He immediately felt embarrassed. The invincible Golden Wand King of the small world is only so. Chapter 2772. Night Sorrow discovered that the new Forbidden Spear was terrifyingly powerful, far more powerful than he'd expected. It was actually able to send the Golden Wand King, a Divine King, flying. He was extremely confident that this spear would be able to break through the defense of the array. You're courting death, Ant. Seeing Night Sorrow attack the array again, the enraged Golden Wand King attacked him again. You want to kill someone? This king won't let you. On the other side, seeing the Golden Wand King's ferocity, the Fire Phoenix King slashed out with her Phoenix Feather Sword. The Phoenix Feather Sword was brightly colored. When it slashed out, it looked like a rainbow, but it didn't look peaceful at all. As it radiated light, it exploded with an extremely violent energy. She's even taken out her natal artifact? Seeing the Fire Phoenix King take out her Phoenix Feather Sword, the Golden Wand King, who was attacking Night Sorrow, immediately retracted his attack. He quickly dodged the attack. At the same time, he took out a long spear made of golden wand feathers from his spatial artifact and faced the attack. The Fire Phoenix King took out her half-step sovereign level natal artifact. The Golden Wand King didn't dare underestimate her. At this time, Night Sorrow used his Forbidden Spear to break through the array set up by the Golden Wand King's clone. Tianyun Bao, come back. After breaking through the array, Night Sorrow used the power of his spirit to control Tianyun Bao while shooting the Forbidden Spear at the Golden Wand King's clone. The Golden Wand King's clone, which had been using a secret technique to restrain Tianyun Bao, clearly knew the power of Night Sorrow's attack. It immediately diverted its attention to resist the Forbidden Spear. At this time, Night Sorrow seized the opportunity to pour a large amount of blood into Tianyun Bao. Tianyun Bao, who had been activated by the blood, instantly released a radiance that caused the heavens and earth to change color. With a hum, It broke free from the Golden Wand King's restraints and flew back to Night Sorrow's hand. I'll help you kill the Golden Wand King. After taking back Tianyun Bao, Night Sorrow immediately sent a sound transmission to Fire Phoenix King and took out the Sky Cloud arrow from his spatial artifact. He drew his bow and shot an arrow at the Golden Wand King's clone. Good. I'll kill his true body. When Fire Phoenix King saw Night Sorrow put away Tianyun Bao, her eyes flashed with regret. At the same time, she also felt lucky. For her, Tianyun Bao returning to Night Sorrow's hands was something she could accept. If it fell into the hands of the Golden Wand King, it would definitely be a nightmare. When Night Sorrow fired a Sky Cloud arrow at the Golden Wand King's avatar, the Dragon Sparrow King, who had fled far away, returned to the vicinity and pondered whether or not he should make a move. It was clear that he had offended the Golden Wand King today. If the Golden Wand King won this battle, he would not have a good ending. What are you waiting for? If you have any trump cards, throw them at the Golden Wand King's avatar. Yishang had 2 deity Cs. One deity C's soul power was used for battle, while the other deity C's soul power was used for scouting. With Tianyun Bao in his hands, he was obviously a target for everyone. He had to guard against everyone present. Good. Today let's kill the Golden Wand King together. Dragon Sparrow King received Night Sorrow's sound transmission and no longer hesitated. He took out a green lamp from his spatial artifact and ran into the void. He gradually floated towards the Golden Wand King's avatar. When he was 100 feet away, the green lamp emitted an extremely peaceful light. Enveloped by this light, the Golden Wand King's avatar immediately felt his eyelids grow heavy. It was obvious that he could not open his eyes. Quick! Attack him quickly! The avatar of the Golden Wand King, who had just used a divine artifact to block Yishang's Sky Cloud arrow, was too weak to care about anything else. Enveloped by the faint light of the green lamp, the Dragon Sparrow King immediately shouted towards Yishang. Sky Cloud 5 Elemental Arrow. Actually, even without Dragon Sparrow King's reminder, Night Sorrow could sense that the Golden Wand King's avatar was in a very bad state. Without any hesitation, he took out 5 Sky Cloud arrows and shot out the 5 Elemental Arrow. This was the first time Night Sorrow had used the 5 Elemental Arrow after becoming a mid-level Divine Lord. He was looking forward to seeing the power of this move. Boom! 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 5 consecutive arrows landed on the body of King Jinawan's avatar, causing it to be severely injured. Damn it! I didn't expect you 2 ants to be able to work together like this. Seeing that his avatar was heavily injured, Golden Wand King's original body angrily shouted. He used a secret technique to merge his avatar with his original body. Although his avatar was already heavily injured, Golden Wand King's strength still increased by half a level after merging with his original body. Originally, he was evenly matched with the Fire Phoenix King, and even had the upper hand. When his strength increased again, he became even more terrifying. However, he now needed to rely on his own strength to fight Night Sorrow, Dragon Sparrow King, and Fire Phoenix King. He was clearly not their match. We are not their match. Quickly think of a way to retreat to this king's territory. Golden Wand King was also someone who had fought a decisive battle. He was no match for them now, so he immediately sent a message to the Golden Python King and Earth Dragon King, asking them to think of a way to escape. Yes. Wand King. Understood. Lord Wand King. The Golden Python King and Earth Dragon King answered one after another. They started to burn their bloodline, wanting to find a chance to escape in a desperate situation. Everyone, use all your strength to stop the Golden Python King and Earth Dragon King. The Golden Wand King chose to escape. Everyone, including the Fire Phoenix King, could not stop him. After the Golden Wand King escaped, the Fire Phoenix King immediately sent a message to Night Sorrow and Dragon Sparrow King, asking them to help stop the Golden Python King and Earth Dragon King. Okay, but please leave the Earth Dragon King to me. Night Sorrow replied to the Fire Phoenix King and shot a Heaven Cloud arrow at the Earth Dragon King. He, who was originally suppressed by his realm, had now advanced to a Middle Celestial Lord. When he shot the Heaven Cloud arrow, its power was completely incomparable to when he was a lower Celestial Lord. In just 4 years, its power has increased by so much. The Earth Dragon King, who was originally fighting with the Fire Wyrm King, immediately panicked when he saw the power of the Heaven Cloud arrow shot by Night Sorrow become so great. He could sense that this arrow was already qualitatively different from the one from back then. Just as the Earth Dragon King was using a secret technique to increase his strength, and was preparing to completely shake off the Fire Wyrm King, the Heaven Cloud arrow shot towards him. The Heaven Cloud arrow that was shot out had already arrived in front of it. The Earth Dragon King completely had no way of dodging. It could only take out a broken shield from its spatial artifact and use it to block in front of itself. Boom. When the Heavenly Cloud arrow hit the shield, it immediately shattered the entire shield. My King Grade Divine Artifact. After the shield was shattered by the Heaven Cloud arrow, the Earth Dragon King roared gloomily. You'd better worry about your own safety. Night Sorrow mocked the Earth Dragon King when he shot the Heaven Cloud arrow in his hand, and took the initiative. Chapter 2773. Yes. Lord Fire Phoenix King. Good. Let's kill him together. The Fire Serpent King and the Fire Bat King both replied before using their strongest movement techniques to chase after the fleeing Golden Python King. The Golden Python King was faster than the Fire Drake King and the Fire Bat King. But before he could get far, he found that the Fire Phoenix King had already blocked his way. Seeing that he had nowhere to run, the Golden Python King immediately knelt down and said, "The Golden Python King is willing to fight for the Fire Phoenix King in the future. Please spare the Golden Python King's life." Spare you? Golden Python King, stop dreaming. You will die today without a doubt. Seeing the Golden Python King beg for mercy, his old opponent, the Fire Bat King, immediately smiled contemptuously. He mocked and continued. You should know that the winner takes all. Go in peace. Go in peace. Fire Bat King, can you represent the Fire Phoenix King? The Golden Python King asked coldly. Of course the Fire Bat King can represent me. The Fire Phoenix King who blocked the Golden Python King said indifferently and continued. If you want to blame someone, blame the Golden Swan King who left you behind and ran away. Kill. Yes. The Fire Bat King who had transformed into a human heard the Fire Phoenix King's words, and looked at the Golden Python King with a cruel gaze. After hearing the Fire Phoenix King's judgment, and seeing the Fire Bat King's gaze, the Golden Python King lowered his head in despair. He knew that no matter how he resisted, he was no match for the 3 kings in front of him. He couldn't even pose a threat to them. Forget it. The winner takes all. You can do it. After fighting for a while and confirming that he had no ability to resist, the Golden Python King gave up. This is the price you have to pay for helping the evildoer. You know how many evil deeds you have done by the Golden Swan King's side all these years. The Fire Bat King was an old opponent of the Golden Python King, and killed him with a single sentence. After killing the Golden Python King, the Fire Phoenix King, the Fire Bat King, and the Fire Drake King all locked their gazes on Night Sorrow's battle. At this time, Night Sorrow, who was holding the Tianyun bow, was in the middle of a white-hot battle with the Earth Dragon King. In the past, because Night Sorrow's cultivation had been suppressed, he had no chance of defeating his opponent at all. But now that he had broken through to the Middle Divine Lord realm, the situation was completely different. In just 4 short years, you've reached the Middle Divine King level. That's nothing. How did his strength increase so much? The Earth Dragon King, who was fighting Night Sorrow, had already seen the Golden Python King being killed. It knew that it would be hard for it to escape today. Even if he was going to die, he was going to drag someone down with him. Therefore, after falling into a disadvantageous position, he began to burn his bloodline power. However, after fighting for a while, the Earth Dragon King discovered that even if it heated up its bloodline, it was still not Night Sorrow's opponent. They began to use all kinds of divine talismans and magic treasures, all of which were self-detonating attacks. Even though Night Sorrow had a Dominator artifact and a half-step Dominator artifact in his hands, facing the frantically counterattacking Earth Dragon King, he still felt quite a bit of pressure. Luckily, the Earth Dragon King's wealth was limited. Not long after, it was used up. However, after it was used up, the Earth Dragon King said coldly without hesitation. Even if this king dies, I won't let you have an easy time. After yelling, he directly charged towards Night Sorrow, preparing to self-detonate and perish together with him. Seeing that the Earth Dragon King actually chose to self-detonate, the gazes of the Fire Phoenix King and the others all became serious. However, none of them helped. In fact, if Night Sorrow died in battle, the Dominator artifact Tianyan Bao would become an ownerless item. In the battle, you already understood my methods. Why would you still self-detonate to attack me? Facing the self-detonating Earth Dragon King, Night Sorrow continuously used the Divine Origin Dragon Locking Array and the Virtuous Dragon Locking Array. While binding it temporarily, he himself quickly escaped. At the same time, Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to the Dragon Sparrow King. In the past, just in case, quickly leave with me. We'll pass the test and leave this small world. He promised to take the Dragon Sparrow King away, and didn't want to go back on his word. In addition, Night Sorrow didn't dare to trust the Fire Phoenix King, the Fire Bat King, and the Fire Dragon King. Putting himself in their shoes, the temptation of a Dominator artifact was too great for them. The challenger used the Earth Dragon King's self-detonation as an opportunity to escape. Fire Phoenix King, should we chase after him? The Fire Bat King asked after seeing Night Sorrow escape. Forget it. After all, the challenger helped us defeat the Golden Luan King's faction. If we attack him now, we'll be too ungrateful. The Fire Phoenix King stared in the direction that Night Sorrow disappeared and said coldly, "This king gave him a year's time. If he can't pass the test within a year, we'll take the Dominator artifact. If he can pass the test within a year, the opportunity left behind by the Ancestor Phoenix will be taken away," the Fire Bat King said unwillingly. Hearing this, the Fire Phoenix King shook her head and said, "Even if he was chosen by the Ancestor, he's someone with great luck. There's nothing wrong with obtaining an opportunity. Don't forget that you and I were once very mediocre in the God realm. We've already received a great favor from the Ancestor Phoenix." That's true. If we weren't guarding this place for the Ancestor Phoenix, we wouldn't have had the chance to break through to the King realm. The Fire Bat King nodded. He was also grateful when the Ancestor Phoenix was mentioned. While they were talking about this, Night Sorrow and the Dragon Sparrow King had already left. On the way to the challenge area, Night Sorrow looked at the Dragon Sparrow King and said, "Tell me the details of the challenge. I'm sure you've tried many times over the years, right?" "Indeed, it's just that no matter what everyone did, they all returned empty-handed." The Dragon Sparrow King nodded and said, "Until recently, a challenger confirmed before his death that he needed some special energy to pass the test. Thus, everyone concluded that he must have a Dominator artifact to pass the test." Special energy? Hearing the Dragon Sparrow King's words, Night Sorrow was certain. If he wanted to pass the test, the focus might not be on Tianyan Bao. He guessed that the test might use the power of virtue. That's right. An ordinary Divine King wouldn't be able to pass the test at all. This is also the reason why everyone fought for the Dominator artifact when they found it. The Dragon Sparrow King continued to explain to Night Sorrow as they traveled. Originally, the Ancestor Phoenix's challenge was to enter an illusory realm. However, just as the Dragon Sparrow King talked about the illusory realm, he suddenly heard Night Sorrow's voice transmission. "The Golden Luan King's aura, he's following us. But don't do anything strange or he'll notice." After sending the voice transmission to the Dragon Sparrow King, Night Sorrow used both the Sea Serpent's Eye and Divine Sense to search for the Golden Luan King. During the search, Night Sorrow didn't make any big movements, as he didn't want to alert the enemy. "Where is the Golden Luan King?" The Dragon Sparrow King immediately transmitted his voice when he heard that the Golden Luan King was following them. "Just now his aura leaked out, and I sensed it. I think it has something to do with his injuries." Chapter 2774. I realize that although you are only a middle celestial lord, your strength, methods, and temperament are all outstanding. No wonder the Lord chose you to be the challenger. The Dragon Sparrow King praised from the bottom of his heart. If not for Night Sorrow, he would have been killed by the Earth Dragon King. Ancestor Phoenix has his own reasons for doing things. Night Sorrow knew that the Dragon Sparrow King had given him this opportunity because of the eternal supreme world. However, he would not say much about it. Let's not talk about this. The Golden Wand King is eyeing us covetously. Let me tell you about some of his techniques. The Dragon Sparrow King saw that Night Sorrow did not want to continue talking about Ancestor Phoenix, so he immediately changed the topic to the Golden Wand King. Finally, he said, "Of course, I really don't know about the doppelganger technique. This is the first time he has used it. Are you afraid? What do you want to say to ease your tension?" The Dragon Sparrow King, who had not much to say, started talking nonstop when he heard that the Golden Wand King was nearby. Night Sorrow was speechless. Afraid? Indeed. After all, the Golden Wand King is the strongest among the 7 kings. I wonder what kind of strength he will unleash when he goes all out. The Dragon Sparrow King did not show any emotion on his face. However, when he transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow, he was already panicking. Based on my judgment, even if the 2 of us have Dominator divine weapons, we might not be his match. Therefore, we must take advantage of his hesitation to set up a formation. Use the power of the formation to deal with him. Night Sorrow said to the Dragon Sparrow King as he quietly set up the formation. Actually, we don't just have to guard against the Golden Wand King. The more dangerous one is the Fire Phoenix King. The Fire Phoenix King? Didn't she let us go after she won? The Dragon Sparrow King did not understand. She must know that the Golden Wand King will come to deal with us. Do you think she will let the Golden Wand King take away the Dominator divine weapon? Night Sorrow asked the Dragon Sparrow King. The Dragon Sparrow King, who was already afraid, became even more panicked. After thinking about it carefully, he felt that the Fire Phoenix King would not give the Golden Wand King any chance. In this situation, it was very likely that she had set up a trap to deal with the Golden Wand King. As for whether or not she was after the ruler artifact, it shouldn't be hard to determine. So for now, things may be very complicated. Night Sorrow said. Although he wasn't 100% sure of Fire Phoenix King's intentions, he felt that he had to consider every possibility. If the Fire Phoenix King had left him and the Dragon Sparrow King behind, not only would the Golden Wand King have reaped the benefits, but she would also have joined forces with Night Sorrow and the Dragon Sparrow King. If that happened, things would be difficult to handle. She was retreating in order to advance. No matter what, it would only be beneficial to her. Fire Phoenix King is really not simple. After listening to Night Sorrow's explanation, the Dragon Sparrow King felt that things were getting more and more complicated. He couldn't help but ask timidly, "If things are really like this, what are our chances of winning?" "Just do your best." The array was ready. "Let's go to the surface and find a cave to rest. Wait for the other party to take the bait." At this point, Night Sorrow had already finished setting up the array. At this time, there was still a certain distance between them and the stage. He couldn't leave the area covered by the array. Alright. Let's see if the Golden Wand King will take the bait. Dragon Sparrow King felt that the Golden Wand King would be a complete idiot if she made a move against Night Sorrow, who had the help of a ruler artifact, who was fighting in his own formation, and who had the Fire Phoenix King eyeing them covetously. Take the bait. Based on the current situation, he has to take the bait. As for the outcome, it will depend on his choice. Night Sorrow said confidently. The Fire Phoenix King had a strong army while the Golden Wand King was alone. If the situation didn't change, the Golden Wand King's fate would be very miserable. Alright. Then let's wait while we prepare some methods. The Dragon Sparrow King went into the cave. As he recovered his divine Yuan Qi, he began to create King-grade God talismans. For the Divine King, creating God talismans was usually given to a Divine Lord to use. The God talismans created by the Dragon Sparrow King were very special. They could be used to increase one's speed, especially one's escape speed. This was one of the main reasons why he could escape from the Golden Wand King's pursuit. After he was done, he handed 3 God talismans to Night Sorrow and said, "If the situation doesn't look good, immediately activate the God talisman. It will increase your speed by 3 times. Increase my speed by 3 times? Your God talisman has such an effect? If you had told us earlier, we wouldn't have needed to set up the array. We could have just sped up and headed to the stage. Knight Sorrow, who was also preparing, said regretfully when he heard the Dragon Sparrow King's words. I've already used up all the god talismans I had just now. If we were to create god talismans recklessly in the void, the Golden Luan King would definitely do something about it. The Dragon Sparrow King explained. That's true. However, with these 3 god talismans, we can definitely advance and retreat as we wish. Knight Sorrow, who had kept the 3 god talismans, suddenly felt that their chances of winning had increased significantly. It's here. After that, Knight Sorrow and the Dragon Sparrow King made some preparations and waited for 2 months. The Golden Luan King finally couldn't take it anymore. He entered the array and headed straight for the cave where the 2 of them were hiding. The moment he entered the array, Knight Sorrow sensed it and informed the Dragon Sparrow King. When the Dragon Sparrow King heard that the Golden Luan King had arrived, he was a little afraid. However, when he saw how confident Knight Sorrow was, he regained some confidence. You were born a coward? Knight Sorrow asked with a smile when he saw the Dragon Sparrow King's reaction. I was originally an ordinary sparrow. It was only because I was nurtured by my lord that I obtained the opportunity to become a king. Normally, if I don't fight to the death, I will unconsciously become cowardly. This is a fact that cannot be changed. The Dragon Sparrow King sighed. I saw that your performance was not bad when you were fighting the Earth Dragon King. Knight Sorrow said to the Dragon Sparrow King as he walked out of the cave. That's because I was attracted by the Dominator Divine Weapon and lost my judgment. The Dragon Sparrow King shook his head and said, Now that I think about it, how could I have the luck to obtain the Dominator Divine Weapon? Just as the Dragon Sparrow King said this, the Golden Luan King arrived. The Golden Luan King snorted coldly and said, At least you know your place. It's true that I know my place. However, you don't have that kind of luck either. Can't you see it for yourself? The Dragon Sparrow King laughed self-deprecatingly. He looked at the Golden Luan King and continued, If you had come to snatch the Dominator Divine Weapon today, I'm afraid you would have died. Hee. This king's matters don't need a piece of trash like you to worry about. Chapter 2775. Golden Phoenix King, let me give you a word of advice. Ambition will make you lose your mind. If you continue to be stubborn, you will end up in a miserable state. Before Knight Sorrow could speak, the Dragon Sparrow King mocked him. I used to think that you were a maverick. I didn't expect you to have the potential to be a dog. The Golden Phoenix King rebuked the Dragon Sparrow King. He then looked at Knight Sorrow and said, Hand over the Dominator artifact and this king will guarantee that you can leave this pocket dimension safely. I don't need a deserter like you to protect me. I don't like people like you who don't care about their own people and run away alone. Knight Sorrow looked at the Golden Phoenix King and snorted coldly. Then, you 2 pieces of trash, are you going to fight? The Golden Phoenix King's body emitted boundless battle intent. If the 2 of us are trash, then you are a brainless fly without a head. The Dragon Sparrow King cursed. He then took out his Dominator artifact and attacked the Golden Phoenix King. Knight Sorrow also held the Samsara halberd in his hand. He activated the 33 Skies secret battle technique and attacked with his forbidden spear. Without the Fire Phoenix King, you are all ants. The Golden Phoenix King laughed coldly in the face of their attacks. He then used both his fists to attack Knight Sorrow and the Dragon Sparrow King. He was indeed strong, especially after his original body merged with his doppelganger. His strength was even stronger than the Fire Phoenix King's. He was not at a disadvantage even though he was fighting 1 against 2. He defeated Knight Sorrow and the Dragon Sparrow King. You are indeed strong. However, you will definitely lose today. After exchanging 1 move, Yishang suddenly stopped and said, You're right. Even now you are still so confident. Are you ignorant or just ignorant? The Golden Phoenix King laughed coldly. I advise you to use your Dominator artifact. After using it, you will realize that in the face of absolute strength, external items are useless. Since you are so confident, why don't we make a bet? Knight Sorrow said. Inside the array formation that he had arranged, Knight Sorrow was not afraid that the Fire Phoenix King would be able to see the situation inside. He had already used an illusory array to cover up the situation inside. The scene that was seen from the outside was completely based on the previous move, which had evolved into various illusions. Hearing Knight Sorrow's words, the Golden Wand King smiled confidently. What kind of bet do you want to make? Could it be that he's going to give the sovereign artifact to this king? If the Dragon Sparrow King and I lose to you, my ruler artifact will be yours. Knight Sorrow stared at the Golden Wand King and said, If you lose, you will serve me from now on. He and Dragon Sparrow King didn't make any vows of allegiance. However, the Golden Wand King was extremely strong and had no bottom line. He was prepared to enslave her. If he could successfully subdue the Golden Wand King, then the Fire Phoenix King's forces would not be much of a threat. He would basically be in an invincible position and would be able to pass the trial without any worries. What a good plan. The Golden Wand King laughed coldly when he heard Knight Sorrow's words. He was strong and he wasn't stupid. He knew that Knight Sorrow must have something to rely on if he dared to propose such a bet. After a moment of silence, he opened his mouth and said, All right. No matter what tricks you have up your sleeves, they will all be useless in the face of absolute strength. I agree to the bet. However, I have a condition. If I win, the two of you will serve me. All right. I agree. Since that's the case, let's make a heavenly oath. Knight Sorrow felt that there was nothing to be afraid of. He took the lead and made a heavenly oath. Then he said, Actually, you know that your only way out is to make this bet. I also know that this is also the way out for the two of you. The Golden Wand King snorted coldly and made a heavenly oath. He completely unleashed his killing intent and said, Do it. Take this. The Dragon Sparrow King, who had also made a heavenly oath, used a divine talisman and attacked the Golden Wand King. He transmitted his voice to Knight Sorrow. I will use my speed to restrain him. You use your sovereign artifact. I don't see the need to use my sovereign artifact to deal with him here. Knight Sorrow, who had replied to the Dragon Sparrow King, immediately activated the formation after the battle began. After the formation was activated, the Golden Wand King immediately felt his strength decrease exponentially. Realizing that something was wrong, he said angrily, Despicable. You have indeed prepared a trick. There is no such thing as despicable. The winner takes all. Everything is just a trick. Knight Sorrow took out Tianyun Bao and used his blood to activate Tianyun Bao. When Tianyun Bao buzzed, he immediately took out 5 heavenly cloud arrows and shot out the heavenly cloud 5 elemental arrows. He knew that he had to use all his strength to deal with the Golden Wand King, who was a top expert among the divine kings. Ant. Scram. The Golden Wand King, who was being harassed by the Dragon Sparrow King, already felt his strength being suppressed. The moment Knight Sorrow shot out the heavenly cloud 5 elemental arrows, he activated his bloodline and sent the Dragon Sparrow King flying. Then he faced the 5 elemental arrows head-on. The Golden Wand King's bloodline was originally very weak, but he had been given a drop of ancestral phoenix true blood by the ancestor phoenix. Therefore, his bloodline was not simple, and he was stronger than the other kings. However, after his strength was suppressed, he was still sent flying by Tianyun Bao's strongest attack. Although he was strong, he was still sent flying. You are also an ant in front of strength. The Golden Wand King was sent flying just like him. The Dragon Sparrow King got up and attacked him again. If he lost, he would have to submit. Although he was not very brave, he knew the consequences. Forbidden Spear. Knight Sorrow, who had used Tianyun Bao to injure the Golden Wand King, took out his heavenly Samsara halberd and attacked his opponent. Just as the Golden Wand King was about to dodge, he used the Divine Origin Dragon Locking formation to bind him temporarily. The heavenly Samsara halberd and the Dragon Sparrow King's attacks landed on the Golden Wand King. The Golden Wand King, who had been suppressed by Tianyun Bao, was weakened by half after being attacked. He looked like he was on the verge of death. That's not right. According to the Dragon Sparrow King, the Golden Wand King should have many tricks up his sleeve. When Yi Shang saw the Golden Wand King's reaction, a trace of doubt arose in his heart. The Golden Wand King was suppressed by the formation and could not use his full strength. Moreover, he had activated his bloodline and looked like he was exerting his full strength. However, he felt that the Golden Wand King, the strongest of the 7 kings, should have more power than this. Golden Wand King. Now take a look and see which of us is the real ant. The Dragon Sparrow King, who did not sense anything wrong, continued to attack the Golden Wand King. Dragon Sparrow, you are just relying on the challenger's Dominator divine weapon and formation. What is there to be proud of? The Golden Wand King looked at him with disdain. You don't need to know what I am relying on. This is the result of your ignorance. As the Dragon Sparrow King spoke, he attacked again. As expected, the Golden Wand King was sent flying again. He looked even weaker, as if he was hanging on by a thread. You're tuning into the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.